Hello, everyone. We're just getting ready to start the conservation meeting for September 8th, 2021. Are we ready to go? Chair Scanlon. I'm hearing the nod. So hello, everyone. This is Chuck Taroni of the Reading Conservation Administrator, consistent with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, allowing us to adhere to social distancing. Let me see. Hold on a second.
Recording in progress.
Social distancing requirements during the COVID-19 crisis. The Town of Reading Conservation Commission meeting is being held virtually via Zoom for audio and video participation of the Conservation Commissioners. Applicants and their representatives and myself or the Commission Chair will unmute commissioners, applicants, and their representatives. And members of the public individually as needed. During the commission meeting, the chair and the administrator will be the only ones to permit anyone to share videos. These controls are in place to ensure that tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, the chair will conduct a roll call vote of all members, see if they're present and if they can hear. And so, Anika?
Okay, roll call vote. We will just continue in this order through the rest of the meeting with comments and upcoming votes. So, Martha?
Martha Moore, Vice Chair, present.
Brian?
Brian Bowe, member, present.
John?
John Sullivan, member, present.
Joe?
Joe Carnahan, member, present.
Carl?
Carl Saccone, member, present.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That's the roll call order. Go ahead, Chuck.
Thank you, everyone. Please note at this time, this meeting is being recorded. Also be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All the material for this meeting is available on the Conservation Division page. And I recommend that commission members and the public follow the agenda as posted on the Town of Reading's website. However, because this meeting is being conducted remotely, I advise applicants, particular, that the commission cannot discuss or consider documents which were not previously posted. Information may, however, be presented orally. Similarly, members of the public are encouraged to provide written comments, but should understand that not all participants nor the commission members will be able to see any written comments during the course of this meeting. Before we get started on tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of business and ensure accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After the commissioners make their remarks, and these remarks have been addressed by the applicant, the chair will afford the public comments as follows. The chair or the administrator will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name. Once the chair and the administrator have a list of public commentators, the chair will call on each one by name and afford them 4 minutes for comment. The applicants may be requested to respond by the chair or the administrator. After public comment, the chair will once again go down the line of commissioners, inviting each by name to provide further comment, question, or motions. Please hold off until your name is called. Finally, each vote during tonight's meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Let's begin. Let's dive right in. I think the first order of business is the public hearing for 1310 Main Street. Would you like me to read the script to reopen that? Or it says continued, so I don't know if I need to reopen that.
What's that? No, you don't.
Okay. So let's discuss 1310. Can we have an update? I think last I understood from communications from you, we were looking for a third-party review. Any updates on that?
Sure. I reached out to 3 consulting firms, and it was Ecotech, BSC, and LEC. And each one will provide a quote to review the wetland line and, comment, do a site visit, come to a meeting, and review the wetland line and prepare documents to support their findings. And we should have those by the next meeting, which would be September 22nd.
Great. Is there any other order of business from anybody else on conservation about that? Unmute, please, and speak up. Hearing none. Let's move on to another order.
You would like a motion until second by
Yes.
one of the members.
Yeah. I'll entertain that motion.
I move to suspend 1310 Main Street until our next meeting on September 22nd.
Second.
Okay, vote please.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Adika Scanlon in favor.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Small Lane. And what I'd like to report about that is that the last meeting, we decided to go to third-party review for Small Lane, and we accepted the LEC proposal, and we needed to receive a check by the applicant. And I've sent out a couple emails during that first week, but not during the second week. I think they understand that we're waiting for the money before we can proceed. And so I haven't received any money to let the consultant know that they can move forward with this review. And I just wanted to remind the commissioner that I have a discrepancy with how the notice of intent was prepared. And some of these categories were overlooked and understated. And I think that the order of conditions or the notice of intent, filing fee needs to be looked at again. I think that was mentioned at several meetings, but we never got a chance to talk to the applicant about it. I did send the consultant, which is Norse Environmental, Maureen Harold, a summary of my findings. And I also went over them with DEP, and DEP unofficially said that they're appropriate. And so it needs to be discussed.
Okay.
I don't mean at tonight's meeting. I mean when the applicant gets back. Okay.
I assume the applicant is not here for that.
Yep.
For this meeting. Is that? I'm just looking at some of the participants, and
so that would be Maureen Harold. Jack would be part of that, but each one of the participants can use their raise hand function if they would like to speak.
Okay. I don't see anything more on that, so I will entertain a motion to continue.
So I think at the last meeting, they wanted to be continued till so we should just do one more meeting till September 22nd.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to continue the public hearing on Zero Small Lane until our next meeting on September 22nd.
A second.
Martha? Oh, wait.
I'm sorry, my internet dropped out. The last I heard was the applicant is not here.
Okay, let me bring you up to speed then. We have made a motion to continue to the 22nd, and it's been seconded. Are you prepared to vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brian Bowe, agree.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay, so that is continued to the 22nd.
So next we have Lot A, Main Street. We decided to approve the LEC bid to review the wetland line, 10 flags, and they have not finished that process yet. So this needs to be continued also to the September 22nd meeting. I guess, but before we do, we might ask if anyone in the joining our meeting has any questions. And Giovanni has his hand raised.
Okay, Giovanni, just for the record, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Good afternoon, Giovanni Federo with Engineer. So I was talking to the LEC representative for, who was doing the peer review, and he did go out on site. He did reflag some of the flags, majority of them, even the ones in the back. But he didn't, I'm assuming that he did not send a report over to you, Chuck?
We don't have a report yet. No.
Oh, okay.
And I was actually unaware that he went to the site. So
okay. So yeah, I've been in communication, and I do have a hand sketch of what he provided me. But at the same time, I had my field guy go out in the site, and he did locate the flags, at least the ones that were pretty significant. And I put them on the CAD file. I'm happy to share it with you to show you the difference, if you want to just take a look at it for discussion.
Giovanni, I appreciate that information. I'm glad it's making progress. I'm going to ask that we, I'm going to ask that we get it final as a submittal for everybody to look at, so that we can, it sounds like things are getting looked at, but I think we should be provided with the final document first.
I totally agree. I just wanted to ask a few questions, because with the relocation of the new wetlands, it looks like we're going to have to do some wetland replication, or I was thinking maybe if we could go for a variance. And I just wanted to ask the board what the board's thoughts are on a process like that. Would they prefer to see replication or a variance?
I think it depends on the situation. We're really going to have to take a look at the final data and look at the whole picture, and then consider, I think if you're going to do a variance, you have to provide an alternatives analysis, don't you? So replication could be part of an alternatives analysis, right? So that's kind of getting into a lot of detail that we haven't had any time to prepare for this meeting. And I appreciate that that's a great heads up coming down the road, but I'm hesitant to even open it up if we're not prepared, because we could tell you something here that we don't have an opportunity to really give you a thoughtful answer on.
Okay.
So when we receive the material, we'll provide you a copy of it, and we'll discuss it at the next meeting. I guess we're a little bit surprised by, not knowing that all this work has happened and the commission didn't receive a final report. But what should happen is we get the final report, we share that with you, you bring your wetland scientist in, and they're part of the discussion about these flags and how they can proceed at that point. So that's what we would expect at the next meeting.
So when you say, our wetland scientists, I'd be referring to Norse.
Right, because they flag the wetlands.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can read the report. Typically, if you can work with what's out there with the new flagging, then 9 times out of 10, I would say that you just accept it. But if you can't, then there needs to be a discussion.
Okay. It's doable, just with some replication. That's it.
Well, that's a good primer. We look forward to seeing the final report.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Well, I think that should wrap that up. So I'll leave it up to you.
Okay.
Right,
Thanks
Chief
for
Ladder.
bringing
Thank
that
you.
to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that input, I'll entertain a motion to continue to the 22nd.
I move to continue Lot A next to 1261 Main Street to September 22nd.
And I'll second it.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. Thank you.
Okay, that was lot A. Yep.
Okay, and moving on to the next order of business, the amended order of conditions. So would you like me to read that, Chuck, or do you want to read that?
Sure. The applicant proposes to eliminate the approved patio and grill area to the rear of the neighboring property at 271 Main Street and replace it with a 10 by 20 gravel parking space. The parking space will be used by the neighbor at 271 Main Street for her business, and 259 and 267 Main Street LLC has granted the neighbor and parking easement. The proposed work is outside of the riverfront area, but within the wetland buffer zone. The application and plans can be viewed at the Conservation Division page under current projects. We have Joe Penizola here to talk about this application. They sent us some new material during the week, a new checklist for the stormwater standards, a new plan, and I guess, Joe, I'm trying to turn your video on. I don't know if that's something you can do, but I did unmute you.
If I hit start video, it says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. So but we can go on without my
let's
video.
Just try it again now. And Josh, same.
There it goes. Okay, now you can see. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. With us tonight is Josh Latham, the project attorney, and some of the members of the project development team. So when we last met, there were some requested additions, clarifications to the plan, and also request for a full stormwater management report. So we've submitted that, going through the 10 stormwater standards. We've made some changes to the plan itself that were all born out of the last meeting and suggestions from the commission. The first is a 4-foot chain link fence has been added to the guardrail to protect from trash getting into the wetlands. So that'll be on the two sides. The side in the back, the other side is an existing retaining wall that's part of the overall parent project, I guess. Then we added a combination gravel and sod strip to the rain garden to provide some pre-treatment. This will knock down any of the gravel that might wash towards there. The first is an 8-inch wide by 18-inch deep stone diaphragm. That's wrapped in filter fabric on the sides and bottom, so it can be maintained. It can be pulled out and reset. It's a fairly small area as far as the width and depth, so it can be serviced. And that runs the 20 feet along that side of that parking space before the rain garden. Then after that, there's a sod strip that's 3 feet wide, and these are in accordance with Mass DEP guidance on pre-treatment for rain gardens in sensitive areas. So that is compliant with standard 6, because we do have zone A surface supply zone here, as Chuck had pointed out at the last hearing. We talked about a berm to stop the gravel from kind of getting out, but that would kind of be go into the rain garden. So this combination, I think, is the best way to get our pre-treatment to meet the standard 6 requirements, and also have a place to do the maintenance and not have too much washing into the rain garden. The plantings have been revised to include a wetland seed mix in the bottom of the rain garden, in addition to the 3 shrubs that we had proposed. And then we've replaced, instead of loam and seed, on the balance of the area where the gravel is being eliminated, we're just going to use a New England erosion control mix, which will not have to be maintained. So that'll be able to naturalize. We've also noted that in the extent of the 35-foot area beyond the gravel, that's to be planted in accordance with the prior approved plan for the river, the buffer zone restoration that's been ongoing, and I think by and large is complete. And lastly, we revised the snow storage signs to read no snow storage instead of at all in the area, rather than no snow storage beyond the guardrail, which is what we had last time. And then that way we'll just have no snow storage in that area. And as I indicated last time, I think what they're going to have to do is backblade that. Just the plow will run in with the plow blade up, they'll drop the blade, and they'll pull back and store it probably over in the corner outside of the buffer zone, outside of the riverfront, and in kind of a dead space that they won't need for maneuvering cars and so forth. So we did submit this to Chuck and town engineer, and didn't hear anything back. So I'm assuming that those were found to be in compliance. I'm happy to run through the 10 standards. We are considering this redevelopment, if you will, because we are going from a developed area with compacted gravel to remove some of that, or to eliminate some of that and go to a smaller area. So it meets the definition of redevelopment. But by and large, we comply. I think the only areas that we're looking for a little bit of relaxation is the depth of the soil, the rain garden mix. So I'm happy to answer any questions the commission might have, but would certainly like to get this implemented.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go through roll call order and see if people have questions or comments. Starting with you, Martha.
I don't have any questions. It sounds like you did meet all of the things I asked for.
Okay, thank you. Next.
I do have one question. As far as the snow plowing and the idea that the operator would have the blade number all the way down and to scrape it that way. So who's responsible first for making that clear to the operator, and then who's responsible for monitoring that in fact it's being done properly?
Well, answer to the first question, the snow plowing for this parking lot will be the responsibility of the lot owner, the owner of the dog daycare. We are installing 2 signs that clearly state that, so we would hope that the plow operators saw that and abided by it. But certainly we can have a conversation with the owner about, you know, what the commission's condition was that's memorialized by this change to the plan.
Yeah,
then from the standpoint of policing, it's, you know, it's incumbent upon the condominium. This area is maintained and compliant with the order of conditions and the conditions that will survive the COC in perpetuity, which is maintenance of the stormwater and maintenance of the area. One of the issues that I concur with the commission in not having snow piled here is it gets in the way of the functioning of the rain garden. So that's going to be an issue that the condo association will have to understand, and their maintenance team, who's going to be, you know, operating and maintaining this stormwater system, and they'll have to communicate with the landowner that, hey, you know, you're not, like the sign says and like the order says, you're not supposed to leave pile snow here. So it'll be as with anything. I always have a little bit of trepidation with snow storage because who's reading the plans in the snow management plan at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're plowing? But I think in this case we have again a condominium association that's going to be responsible because it's their property. So they're going to want to make sure that that's being done in compliance with it.
So you believe that the condo association is aware that they need to talk to the person who owns the lot, and they're aware of the responsibility to monitor this gravel plowing situation?
They will be. We don't have a condominium association yet.
Yeah,
so, but we'll make sure that the condominium association is they'll definitely understand that that rain garden is theirs, and they'll understand that this parking space is on their property, and we'll emphasize to them that, you know, the compliance with the order for things that are being done on their property, even if it's being done by someone else, is still their responsibility.
Yeah, I always worry. I mean, it's an old adage, right? That as soon as you have multiple people responsible for something, then nobody is. And so
well, that's why there's only one responsible party here with regards to the operation and maintenance of the stormwater system. That's the condo association.
Yeah, they're the ones who are ultimately responsible. Just you had said that the lot owner is responsible for telling the snowplow operator. So there's 2 there, but I get your point. That's it for questions. I just have a little bit of innate skepticism, but that's just who I am. But I'm all set.
Thank you, Brian.
I don't have any additional questions.
Okay, thank you, John.
No questions from me either.
Thanks. Carl.
I'm not sure if I have a question. I just was looking at the rain garden detail, and I think that the 3 feet of sod and that gravel detail will be helpful in trying to slow down and kind of filter some water. I like the detail of the you know, the rain garden mix, you know, then the 4 inch of loam and then the New England mix. I just always wonder, you know, like with the snow conversation, just once we get the first inch of rain, if everything just gets kind of washed out anyway. I'm sure the cleffer will be fine, but I'd like to, interested to see if the New England mix takes, but it's a nice detail. So no questions, I think, just sort of a comment.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. I had a couple of questions. Just if you could sort of remind me, Joe, or anybody else on your team, is there a history of flooding issues that they've experienced on that lot and in that back area during extreme storms? Have they had trouble with ponding or no?
There's one area that we extended, we had looked at in the field with where we were going to start the bridge. That seemed like it was a slight depression in which water could get stuck, you know, and then I think the organic there was a little heavier. There was more leaf staining.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Joe. Let me clarify. I'm talking specifically about the inset area.
Yeah, and I'm getting there just kind of roundabout. I'm sorry. And really that was the only area locally that I could see that there was any evidence there was ponding.
Which is well outside of the inset.
Right. So I think that
Okay.
this area was, all indications were that it was draining.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to try to get through my questions so we can open it up to the public. I had them here. Stand by. I'm sorry. I just need to get to them. In a response to the first standard, you said that there's a riprap apron proposed to mitigate potential erosion caused by the new outfall. Is that the stone weir you're talking about?
Yes.
And erosion would come from where?
Erosion would come from when the water overtops the rain garden. You know, you're concentrating some flow and it would be there. So that's why we armor it.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand. Okay, so it would come out of the rain garden. No, it wouldn't come out. Like, so the area that is where you're putting the New England erosion control restoration mix, is that higher elevation or lower elevation than the rain garden?
Higher.
Than the edge of the rain garden?
The rain garden has a crest at you know, elevation 91. So there's a low point at the stone weir at 90.3. So we're forecasting where the water is going to leave that rain garden when it overtops it. So then
okay. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry to interrupt.
So then the area to the, whatever direction is that, to the east is lower than that stone apron. So the stone apron is heading west to east, down gradient from 90.3 to 98, you know, 90 contour there.
So when the overflow goes down the stone weir, does it flow to the page northeast or does it flow to the page north?
Northeast.
So if it, just to play devil's advocate here, if it flows to the page northeast, is it going to start interfering with that, the end of that gravel driveway? Do you know the parking spot there?
No, because that's higher.
Because that's higher, because I see an elevation there of 90.5.
Right.
Okay, and then there's the 90.8 in between the two of them.
Right.
And that 90.8 is proposed. It's not existing right now.
Correct.
Okay, so it's going to be a little bit. Okay. Okay, yeah, that was just, I don't expect, so what's the capacity of that rain garden? If, how, at crest, how much water are we talking?
Not a lot. Just pull up the drainage calculation. 391 cubic feet at 90.8. But it doesn't go that high. So
right, and some of it's going to be infiltrating.
At 90
if
point,
it's,
at, yeah, 90.16 during the 2-year storm, for example, it stages to 90.16 with 186 cubic feet of.
okay. Yeah, and I'm wondering if it being directed to the northeast is going to cause problems in the future. That's all. If your engineers have looked at that and they're here today to attest to that it's not, I'd love to hear.
Well, I am the engineer.
You're the engineer, okay.
And I'm attesting that
You're
I think
attesting to it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thanks, bear with me. It's been a long week. I'm gonna try to keep up with my details here. All right, there was another question I had. And that was, in the operation and maintenance plan, I would like to include in there that that part of the operation and maintenance include the, maybe Chuck, this could be just part of the order as well, but I think it helps to keep it cohesive inside the document, you know, so that people who have the O&M plan, everything's in that plan. Is what I would like to ask and bring up for discussion is, can we include something in there that mentions that the types, like not necessarily that equal amounts or similar numbers of shrubs and herbaceous cover, you know, be maintained, because sometimes we approve these planting plans, years go by, invasives take over, and I would really like to see, especially in an O&M plan, something that preserves the intended plantings that we've got here, and the intended planting areas. And we all know that invasive management requires is like key, is a key issue when we're talking about maintenance. So that was a comment I had.
And that's an easy one that we can just, if the commission could condition that the O&M be updated to include right in the O&M, should there be any loss of plants or ground cover, that it's replaced in kind with 3 sweet pepper bush and the New England wetland mix.
Yeah, or if those aren't available, natives that would serve the same purpose and fulfill the same function.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to take another look here. I just wanted to comment that, you know, I looked at the redevelopment standard, and I agree that this meets the standard, because, and I just want to share this, especially with the rest of the commission, the original plan, well, the original conditions had the rear part of this area from, I would say, the edge of the rain garden over to it, like right and left over to the base of the stone of the new wall being a giant area of gravel parking. And according to the stormwater, according to DEP treats gravel surfaces as impervious. So removing that gravel area that existed before, turning it into rain garden, even if we still have a certain amount of parking there, is a net reduced impervious area in this part of the 100-foot buffer zone. I just wanted to mention that I looked at that. And those were the comments I had. Chuck, I'm going to ask if you have any comments, and then I'm going to open it up to the
Yeah,
public.
just some cleanup questions I have. So Joe, in the operation and maintenance plan, when the spring cleanup happens, and it was that there's gravel pushed beyond the parking spot and into the rain garden and towards the front of the parking spot or the back of the parking spot, that's the responsibility of the condo commission to take on as part of their spring cleanup. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's not going to turn. I just didn't want it to turn into, we're trying to get, the easement holder, to go in there and clean it. I think the commission wants to send one note, they clean it, and then after that's clean, they can go after whoever they want to go after.
Yeah, I would see it the same as if this was a catch basin and sediment got into the catch basin and the catch basin needed to be cleaned out. It would go towards the operator, which is the condo association, to maintain that BMP. So here,
yeah, gravel's tough to get out of grass. It's not easy. So in our standard conditions, we have something we call an acknowledgement, and that's if the property changes hands. We want to make sure the owner and the new owner receives an order of conditions, and we ask them to acknowledge the fact that they've received an order of conditions. I'd like to put into this, this order, the amended order, that you provide an acknowledgement that the easement holder has a copy of the order of conditions, the amended order of conditions, because I think that's all that pertains to this site, and that they understand it. And it's usually goes something like that they name and address, they sign it themselves, and it gives us contact information just in case.
okay. Well, where we have conditions of the original order of conditions, monitor the restoration plantings for 5 years, the developer is going to be in and around. The transition of the property to the new condominium association generally happens around 2/3 or 75% ownership. So it's even before they've closed on all the units. So we'll have the point at which everyone's still engaged, and we can provide that assent document from the condominium association governance to the commission.
And also with the property at 271 Main Street, could we get an acknowledgement that they received the order of condition also?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can answer that one, we can certainly either an acknowledgement signed by that property owner, or we can certify that we have delivered it to her. Sometimes I just can't guarantee that I can get a signature from somebody, but we will certify that we've delivered it and served it.
Right. We've had no issues with that, but I guess they've been buying the property, and this is a little different. My concern was just they need to direct their plow person to backblade that area, and that's just super important. The only other thing that I wanted to ask is that a new note be put on the plan, because I think opposite the path that goes into the back area on the boardwalk. It's unmowed, and I'd like just some sort of note on the plan that this is also unmowed, which is where it says stone, where it says stoneware, but not where it's pointed. But that area that you're just going to cast seed beyond the rain garden. And then that's also mentioned in the operation and maintenance plan. That area is to be left unmowed. I guess if there was any pushback, I don't know if you guys wanted to push back on that, but I mean, in these kind of areas, we have allowed one mowing per year and during certain times. So it just prevents woody vegetation from growing in.
I think this is going to be a lot like the rest of the riverfront and restoration area and wetlands, that we're going to have a very controlled path down to the boardwalk, and the boardwalk maintains the sewer easement, what have you. I think the rest can just grow untouched on road. This is not going to be part of our formal landscaping. So
yeah, so
I think just
specifically this area here.
That area there can just be unmowed.
I guess there's a path here,
1 year. Yeah.
I'm assuming this is unmowed. I mean, it looks like that. So every time I go out there, and it's only going to be the path that's kind of maintained, and then maybe a little bit around it, but otherwise it's there.
Yeah,
and,
we never envisioned that the 35 restoration area would be maintained, as we're going to let it grow.
Okay, that's fine. Should we monitor this area for woody vegetation? Will that disrupt the flow outside of the weir area? Does that need to be put in there? Or does it operate fine? If
I think they'll have to, once they maintain, they'll have to maintain the weir, which is part of the BMP. But I think beyond that, it's fine.
Yeah, because hummocks roots, I just think if the roots start raising above the soil, you're going to get some sort of backflow, but I'll agree, just that I mentioned it. That's all the questions I have right now.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to open it up to members of the public. If you would raise your hand if you have a question or comment about this, introduce yourself. Okay.
I don't see any.
None.
Yeah, if you want to make a comment, please use the raise hand function.
Yep, I don't see any. So I will circle back to conservation members if you would unmute yourself if you have any final questions.
None for me.
None for me.
None for me.
I don't think we're doing a roll call, but if we are, none for me either.
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna, we don't have to go through the whole roll call. So at this point, I would entertain a motion on this application.
Motion to close, then a motion to issue. But between closing and issuing, ask for comments, and we'd like to get comments about the conditions from the commissioners. So close first.
I move to close the hearing on DEP file number 270-0727.
Second motion.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Carl Saccone in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. Okay, at this point, among just commission members, are there any other items up for discussion on this? Anything else that we should talk about before we vote on issuing an order of conditions?
So I would like just to go over, I only have, Brian was asking about, so this is an opportunity to make sure that your conditions get into the order. Our orders are mostly boilerplate unless you add your conditions in at this moment. I've taken some down as we go, but the acknowledgement, the no-mo on the plans, and in the order of conditions. And then the loss of plants will be replaced with vegetation from the originally planted as per plan, quantity, and cover. So that's what I have.
And we will get a revised O&M.
Revised
well,
O&M.
Which I think they can take care of that without us, continuing the hearing for it. It's kind of minor. So we have acknowledgement. We have vegetation replacement.
Yep.
In kind with what's proposed.
As per plan, yep, and quantities and cover.
There was a discussion about removing gravel if the gravel gets pushed into the rain garden.
I think that we were assured that that's in the O&M plan and who was responsible, but I can add it. Spring cleanup, I'll make a spring cleanup note.
So Chuck, additionally, you were just talking about replacing plants, should that be necessary? And you were saying in kind, what have you. Is it worth saying something explicitly about exactly as according to the plan, so there's no question about the placement of plants?
Vegetation that was originally planted as per plan, replacing quantity and cover, because sometimes 3 years from now you're going to get a different cover, you might need more plants or something like that.
Okay, so as long as you think that in cover handles the situation of things being not necessarily in the intended places.
Yeah, unless so we've noted the plan, which is on, it's not on the screen anymore, but we've noted this plan.
Yep.
And the operation and maintenance plan, and the variety, the quantity, and cover. I don't know how else to do that. I mean, usually these, unfortunately, these things won't come up until there's a big enough problem for us to see. It would be great if the condo board is very active, which could happen. This is a nice site, and it's going to look great when they get it, and hopefully it's maintained. So, but I think that does it. If there's any suggestions, I can send this draft out to the commission and the applicant, and we can see what comes back.
Yep. Any other comments from commission members? Okay, hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to issue.
I move to issue the amended order of conditions for DEP file number 270-0727.
A second.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joe, Josh, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right, Chuck.
So now we have Pearl Street. You want me to read this again? I don't know if I'm doing. Oh, do you have this one? It's a toss up. I don't know. Let's let everyone in.
Tell you what, yeah.
Let's let people in.
While you're letting people
first.
in, I'll read it. Actually, is there a script on it? Because, well, right now we're gonna discuss the 445 Pearl Street enforcement order. Mr. Mike Rivers, this is the homeowner of 445 Pearl Street, who is subject to an enforcement order issued by the Reading Conservation Commission in 2021. According to the enforcement order, the homeowner had done some work to manage the stream flow in a stream next to his driveway. As a result, fill was placed along the southern portion of the stream, which diverted the flow towards the northern portion of the stream bank with some erosion happening. A restoration plan and narrative outlining the approach to restabilize the original stream banks and stabilize the banks have been presented to the Conservation Commission for review. All work is within 100 feet of an intermittent stream, land underwater, and bank. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Commission page under the current project, 445 Pearl Street, Assessors Map 14. So is Mr. Rivers present?
Mr. Rivers' father is here, and my name is Thor Akerley. I was the wetland scientist and part of the engineering firm that worked on the restoration plan for Mr. Rivers.
Well, thank you. Welcome.
Yep.
We received some documents from you. If you could just give a brief review.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you guys about what we did out there. I'm not sure if anyone's been out there. I know Chuck and I have taken a look at it, but I will share my screen here so everyone can see. Can everyone see that? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So this is an existing single-family house lot located in north central Reading, just south of the Pearl Street and Reading crossing, where you have that little odd turn area off of Main Street. It's about 500 feet south of that. On the property, I'll zoom out a little bit just so you can see the entire property. There's an existing single-family home that was constructed in the 1960s, 2 existing sheds in the rear, and further back in here is a swimming pool. Those have been existing for quite some time. The wetland is bordered by an existing stockade fence, chain link fence in the back, and a vegetative buffer along here with lawn areas established in here. The primary resource area at the property is a intermittent stream. This intermittent stream captures water from across Pearl Street from a larger Bvw system that connects, it's probably better to look at the locus here, that connects out into this area and eventually flows here, flows through here under Main Street, across Pearl Street, and then further out towards Beaver Road before it ties into additional wetlands out in this direction. This is an area that does not have a lot of wetland vegetation presently. However, we did visit the site and delineate the wetland resource area, BVW. There was enough wetland vegetation to say that we do have BVW here. Although at this point it's been degraded to a point where there's not much of it. So we do have an intermittent stream, of course, land underwater, as Chuck mentioned, and bank associated with that intermittent stream. So, basically, I'll show a picture here. I'm not sure can you see that picture? Does that come up?
Same one is.
All right, hang on, let me just reshare it. So the first thing we wanted to do here was do an assessment of what had happened. We had gotten a call from Mr. Rivers, and he was under enforcement order, and we weren't sure exactly what happened. But it's clear, we have the northern face of the bank. This is the northern area. This is the southern. I'll refer to that a few times here. But this northern face of the bank has eroded very significantly along this whole face, in large part due to rocks and some fill being placed in here below this existing mulch stock. So what happened is, as water comes down the stream, it was being pushed by the additional fill and rocks placed in here up against the northern bank. The bank was itself likely very steep at one point. There's no question about that. But with the relocation of the water and diversion of water here, it caused significant erosion of that bank. This is, at one point there were small trees up here, shrubs. Likely this sloped down and probably ended somewhere in here, or perhaps even further out. You can see this was probably close to where the old top of bank was. And this is this is the material, rocks, cobbles that have accumulated in here and diverted the stream's flow. So you can kind of see from that picture, I'll go back to the plan here. So, what our goal here was, was really to restore the stream to what it was prior to the disturbance, and to give it a chance to revegetate using, instead of having to go in and install armored slopes, riprap slopes. Those are certainly viable solutions, but they're more expensive, number one. And establishing vegetation and riparian vegetation especially is a great resource to stabilize these banks naturally, offer some habitat, and introduce a little bit more biodiversity to an area that is in need of it. So this is the portion of the channel we were looking at right there that had shifted north. That's the existing path. You can see that with the pipe coming out here and the stream here, if you look back at historic aerials, it mostly went in a straight line and connected into the stream. It would be pretty odd for the stream to take such a sharp turn like this after coming out of a concrete pipe, pretty fast. But the addition of material in here had diverted that flow up here. So, as part of this project, the number one thing that we've shown is the removal of the fill material, gravel, cobbles, and rocks within the filled area, and the reestablishment of the original stream bed. We've shown a couple of spot shots in here where water will flow down gradient towards the existing intermittent stream and connect into it naturally. This is really approximate. I know in the narrative we had mentioned that these may need to be adjusted slightly in the field, but certainly with the flow of water, these are all lower elevations down here. The flow of water will always continue in that direction based on what's existing out there now. So as far as construction schedule goes and kind of, how this would play out in theory is that, they would have to come in, and what we've shown is it's difficult to see here because of the scale of the drawing, but the first step would be to install coconut core logs at the end of the new stream channel. This would be just to limit any erosion during construction. The next step would be then to excavate out the material, line the new stream bed with 2-inch to 4-inch river rocks. We reached out to Bentley Warren, and they sell a good river stone that are rounded, that can act as a healthy stream bed. You typically want rounded rocks, or well, naturally they would become rounded over time, but it's better to just introduce them as rounded to not have more jagged and sharp rocks catching flow and being removed from the stream bed. At that point, we would install, or the contractor would install, the coconut core logs along the perimeter, the northern perimeter, and the southern perimeter of the new stream channel. After those are installed with stakes on either side, it's shown here a little better. Material would, after the material's been removed from kind of this southern side, they would bring in new clean material with topsoil, and same on the other side. Material, topsoil, slope down to the mid top point of the coconut core logs. Each of these slopes, it does describe it in a bit more detail in the narrative, so I apologize. I don't want to take too much of your time up, but I know we'll probably do a site visit, but each of these bankings would then be planted with willows. which are live stakes. Willows are a really, really good river stabilization technique and bioengineering technique to take care and restore eroding riverbanks. They're used in a variety of applications. A lot of time, they're used in situations where you have sort of like this, where you have sheer cliffs of eroding banks. And technically you probably could restore the existing bank, although it is such a sharp drop, it would take quite a while. But eventually these willows establish themselves and are very good at catching sediment and building back the bank to what it could or was and what it would be in the future. Regardless, we've shown a 2-to-1 slope on the southern side and a 1.5-to-1 slope on the northern side of the bank, with two willow stakes per linear foot of bank. We did outline a few species in the narrative that are preferable. Black willow is typically the best. People also, I know we mentioned a few species of willow, but dogwoods such as silky and red the commission wanted to introduce a little additional biodiversity instead of just willows. But the reason willows are so great is because they're considered a pioneer species and they're very good at establishing themselves in environments with low amount of nutrients, and especially in wetter environments such as this.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the general gist. And I know there's a lot more in the narrative, specifically about construction schedule and timing. Happy to answer any of those questions, and we're happy to take you out to the site and have a look at everything with the commission if that's what you'd like to do.
Okay. Thank you, Thor. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open up to commission members at this point. Martha.
I have some questions, unless you have something to go first, Martha.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. Actually, first one isn't a question, it's a note. In your introduction, you mistakenly said that it's Main Street Route 62 and it's 28, which is almost like 62, but different.
Yeah,
Minor thing. So then my next question is around, you're talking about restoring the northern bank, good. The southern bank, you're putting the slope in and everything. I noticed you do say that you're going to return the channel bed to the historic elevation and grade. What about width? Because one of the things you pointed to that caused the problem was increased velocity. So if you're not putting it back to the original width, aren't you going to have some of the same problems?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we did match, or tried to as close match the existing channel to what we've proposed here. So very similar width, and the straightness of the new channel would help with any erosive forces on those bankings as well.
Okay, so related to that, I don't know how much you know about the original problem that is what caused the homeowner to put in the fill and having in the first place. But do you have an idea of whether these changes will resolve the original problem, whatever that actually was?
Frankly, I don't know exactly what the original problem was. I don't think there was necessarily a problem per se.
Well, it's just in your narrative it says to manage the flow, which obviously is somewhat vague. So
yeah, that's fair. That was kind of the explanation. I believe that was provided in the enforcement order. It was understood between Mr. Rivers and Mr. Tyrone that some of the material that was placed in here was placed in here to divert the flow in that direction. I don't know the reason for why it was placed there, though.
Yeah, the main point is I'm just wondering if doing all this to restore the northern bank ends up bringing back whatever the original problem was on the southern bank.
Right. I don't, yeah, Jack, I'm not sure if you can hear or if Michael's on, but was there a problem with the Southern Bank at one point, or did this just kind of happen over time?
You're speaking. Hello?
Hello, Mr. Rivers.
Yes, Jack Rivers, Senior.
I don't know if you can address how the Southern Bank got to be
Well, I believe
that way in the first place.
I believe that the intent that my son was looking to modify was to move the Southern Bank northerly and take out some of the rocks and whatnot that were blocking the excuse me, were blocking the flow. He was worried about mosquitoes where it was pocketing in the in that for a good bit of time in the latter part of the summer. But it wasn't an erosion problem on the Southern Bank at all. In fact, there's we should be able to almost reconstruct by removing the material, excuse me, by removing the material from the Southern Bank. We can almost, with the existing virgin grade and bank, almost reproduce that if we concentrate on mostly handwork to do that. So we can actually, you know, except where we cut down, and of course, and then, but for the top part of the bank and down most of the bank and to the flow, can almost be reproduced. So there really is, there really wasn't a good reason for doing it.
Okay, Mr. Rivers, we're gonna move on with additional questions if that's okay.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
So,
so my next one is for Thor. In your section on the construction schedule, at the beginning of it, the work should be done during a dry period of the year. I'm just wondering when do you think that might be? And I don't mean just this year,
maybe never. I don't know. You know, ideally, with the willow live stakes, they should be planted late in the dormant season for the stakes. So ideally, you know, you want to look at a March or early April planting of them, which is difficult, you know, because of the that time of the year. But in theory, late February, early March, some of the work can be done. Erosion control blankets can be installed on the slopes with the seed mix. But again, it'll be difficult to get things to grow if we're still, you know, in the latter parts of winter there. So it is a tricky time of the year to manage it. But that's a big component of it, making sure that there isn't, you know, a significant storm coming in the next week or so, that erosion controls are in appropriately, and that, you know, everything's planted, seeded at the correct time of the year. So those, you know, those are important aspects of.
So if I can jump in. So in this case, who would be deciding when this construction should start? Is that your company, or do the Rivers need to take on somebody in between now and then?
Well, yeah, we'd be happy to. You know, I know this will. We recommend. You know, we've also thrown out monitoring as part of the project. You know, and I think with Chuck involved as well, I think we should all be on the same page about when the project should start. we won't be managing the, every aspect of the project as far as plantings, but, we're here to help, Mr. Rivers as much as he needs.
I realized that I didn't intend to try and drive you two to make a bargain right now. That was, even though I can see it, how it got there.
Ryan, it's an important aspect to think about,
it
and it's going to be part of the ongoing discussion, probably in the order of conditions as well. The construction sequence.
So my last one, then, you kind of answered, assuming that you folks are hired, and if not, whoever the company is, that entity would be the ones doing the monitoring for 2 years?
It could either be us or yeah, it could be them. He could hire an independent monitor. But in theory, yeah, I suppose so, yes.
All right, and in the monitoring section, it's critical to any restoration project to identify problems with the early stages. So what do you consider in the early stages of this 2-year monitoring period?
The first growing, it's estimated that approximately 50% of willows will end up dying, but the ones that do make it will, the whole bank will still be full of vegetation regardless of that or not, given the density that we've proposed. But you still want to make sure that, these willows are planted correctly. It's not something that, you can't just go out and just throw them in the ground. There's a little bit of a process to it that we've, outlined here for the contractor. So making sure that some of these, willows establish themselves appropriately, grass is growing, erosion controls are doing well in the spring during the spring rain. So that, that first, portion of the growing season is critical to.
So, and if in fact they happen to not come in as you anticipate them coming in with the density you're planting at, would that entity that planted them be the ones responsible for filling in wherever the gaps were, the patches were?
So who would be responsible? Sorry.
Well, so you said that some willows will die given the density you're planting. That shouldn't be a problem. So if the monitor in fact shows that it is a problem, are you responsible, assuming it's you, but is the planter responsible to come back and fill in any gaps if they appear, or how does that happen?
It would kind of be determined. It would ultimately be Mr. Rivers' responsibility. But if he, it's really up to him and whoever he hires to do the plantings to establish, some kind of relationship there about, should there be any issues.
Okay.
But it'll be Mr. Rivers' responsibility.
Okay. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. John?
Yeah, just for clarification, Thor, you said that the path of the new proposed stream bed is based on historical aerial photos. Is that right?
Yeah, historical aerials and what we saw at the site with material brought in here.
Okay, the reason I ask is that it looks to me like that section is a lot straighter than the rest of the stream where it kind of meanders. But this new section we think was pretty straight, and would you imagine it would stay that way once water's flowing through it?
Yeah, absolutely. Once the banks become established and roots can hold the soil in place, I would anticipate that this would continue flow straight down the stream. But you're right, it does begin to meander a bit as you get down here. And the stream definitely loses a lot of steam down here. And the flow becomes a lot more dissipated and eventually spreads out quite a bit down in here.
Okay. And then I apologize if this was in the narrative and I missed it, but the coconut cord logs are held in place by stakes that are driven into the ground. How close together are those stakes?
We didn't specify actually, but 15 feet or so, 10, 15 feet or so probably makes sense as long as they're, established well. Probably That's a good point, actually. I think probably 10 feet because there will be soil up against them, but they need to have some kind of reinforcement.
Okay, and then long term on this project, what happens to those stakes? Do they eventually rot away as the bank kind of establishes itself?
Yeah, the stakes can be removed eventually.
Okay.
The coconut core logs are made to biodegrade over time. So those can stay, or they can be removed once the bank's fully stabilized.
Okay, and is there any worry about the bank destabilizing as you're removing the logs?
There shouldn't be. There is some
Okay.
soil up against the middle section of it, but once grass and the willow stakes begin to grow and establish their roots, it'll be kind of a normal banking to a stream that you would see, a slight edge to, but the soil behind it would be very well held in place by the vegetation.
Okay. All right, I think that's all I've got.
John, Joe?
Did I just hear you say that you're going to remove the core fishing logs?
I said it was up to the commission. I personally think it makes sense to leave them and let them let stuff grow on them and over time and let them degrade.
I think their lifespan is like 5 to probably not even 7 years, but like in that range, and they're going to degrade. And I don't think anyone's ever removed those after they've been installed. I've seen them everywhere. Use them a lot in Spy Pond, other places. I've never heard of anyone taking them back out, but they do come pre-seeded.
Oh,
Was that something that you looked into to really help establish that bank?
I didn't, but the whole slope was proposed to be seeded with erosion control mix. I will.
I mean, I don't think it actually matters. I mean, I like what you did. I like that proposal, and it's just one log, so it's probably going to be, and the first flush is going to be covered a lot. So I did get confused during your presentation about the dry season and then the late dormant season. It seems like there's a conflict there of when things can happen. I just want to go back to Track Road and just remind the commissioner that we asked for that work to be done in the dry season, quote unquote dry season. And I guess the engineers have a much larger span of what the dry season is. So if we ever agree to having something in a dry season, I think we should state specific months that we're thinking about, because that certainly wasn't the engineers' intention to mislead the commission, but the dry season was a lot more months than July, August, kind of in that area. So it does seem like there's kind of a problem here. I mean, would you build this out in August or July or August of next year and then plant it the following, I don't know, March?
Yeah, I apologize for the confusion on that. What I really should have said is that it needs to be done during a dry period of the season. That was a miscommunication on our part. Really, for the willows to grow and establish during that first growing season, it needs to be during a dry period of the late winter, early spring, which is tough, but that's really the best time to do this kind of work. Okay. I apologize for the confusion. And I also think the seeded coconut core logs are a great idea.
No problem. Chuck, I'm going to jump in for a second because we haven't gone through the rest of the commission comments and we're going on a half hour here. So I just want to hear from Joe and see if Joe and Carl have any comments. Joe?
I think my only question, I think Thor mentioned the site visit. I haven't heard anyone on the commission expressed interest in a site visit. I don't know if other people are interested in that or not, or if we should talk about that now. But
Do you have an interest in site visit?
I always like learning new things. I haven't looked at a project like this before myself, but indulging my curiosity isn't enough to make all you all come out there if everyone else is otherwise happy with the project.
Why don't we bring it, circle back around to that after?
Okay.
I'm not opposed to a site visit. Carl?
Yeah, so I'll just start with maybe in reverse of my comment, because Chuck was just mentioning the growing season. So it feels like to me the early spring would be better for planting, because if the project is completed in the end of winter, it would give it some time to maybe settle with the detail shown, just to ensure that maybe the plantings might fare better. It's going to be wet at the end of the winter or in the spring. I mean, but the willows hopefully will be able to adapt to that. So otherwise, I was going to say the willow species look great. The live staking is really effective. That die, that's no problem, because they're going to get fairly large over time if they take. I know I'm supposed to be the one to maybe answer this, but does anyone else have any interest in seeing a different species? I mean, like the silky dogwood, I know we had mentioned in the beginning, but I think all the variety of the willow was kind of interesting, and I think that should be fine to me. And then one last question, Thor. I know it's probably out of the kind of bold project area, but would it be beneficial to, you know, maybe if it's not prepped like the detail, but live stake, you know, 10 feet past this proposed area, like, you know, upstream and downstream, just to kind of stabilize that bank? Or is that out of the question, I guess?
What area are you thinking could be live staked? Sorry.
No specific area, just say 10 feet upstream and 10 feet downstream.
Oh,
Sort
like
of past the, yeah, just like past the project area, you know.
Yeah.
So and not prepped and add more prep work, but just, you know, plugs, just the live staking, just to see if it helps that kind of area.
Yeah, I don't think that's it's certainly not a bad idea. Some of this is, you know, doesn't have a lot of vegetation. Some of it's lawn,
right?
Kind of along the edge of this fence here. You know, if it's just, oh, we have extra stakes, and can we put them in some of these if there's any bare spots? I know this side is pretty dense, but there could be some spots along here that, you know, if there are.
Because I think I was on site, yeah, maybe. Geez, what this has been on for maybe at some point I did go by there. It was probably months and months ago, but I remember it being kind of some room for that. So I just didn't know if that might just fortify the kind of, you know, that part of it. But otherwise, I think that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Chuck, why don't you go ahead?
You know, I was about to be finished at that point, but I did want to suggest a site visit based on, I'm not sure if the commission has seen this since, I think it came in the beginning of the year. So that's all I had.
I think it's been brought up. I think it's a good idea. Doesn't hurt. We're still in a bit of the review process, so it might be helpful to have plans like these in front of us at a site visit. Sometimes that helps you sort of like see what's going to happen or imagine what's going to happen when you're there. If there's nothing else from you, Chuck, or nothing else from the commission, I'll dive into my comments. Okay, not hearing anything. I had a couple comments on the site design part of this. I want to start off by saying, like, really, I like seeing the core logs establishing sort of an in-stream erosion control temporary kind of wall or buffer. And also, I think the methods you're using to reestablish the stream and the bank are great. So I like the slopes on the different banks. And in terms of the plantings on the banks, if willows are going to do the trick and the function to reestablish, to grab that bank and to maintain it and to hold it in place and to kind of armor the bank naturally, then that sounds good. I'm a fan of variety of species, but I don't want to, I don't think variety of species is more important than the effective job that these species are going to do. However, with diseases, climate change, disease, I tend to think that a variety of plantings maybe could be more resilient. But I don't know. I'm not the plant expert. It's just a comment if that needs to be discussed further. Looking at the plans, the elevations, it said that they might need to be slightly adjusted in the field. When that is written up in the site design, can you sort of talk to the scale of that, those slight adjustments? Are we talking inches of adjustment? Are we talking feet of adjustment? Just as a comment.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I apologize for the vagueness of it.
That's okay.
The idea is just have a tenths of a foot drop along here, so the velocity doesn't run away with the and it cause any additional problems down here. I put that in there because we don't know how how it'll lay out, but in theory it should follow similar elevations to this. We have an existing 91.4 about here.
Okay.
Existing 91.2.
I see. Okay.
So we'd hope it would follow a similar path to this.
Okay, understood. When you are actually out there and you are digging out, removing soils, I assume you're going to put erosion control perpendicular to the flow direction off the downstream end. So whatever that erosion control during the actual excavation, that limit of erosion control needs to be shown also on the plan. That's just a comment.
Yep. So I think this might be is this the area you'd be referring to? I know it is.
Or downstream of that. I mean, whatever you think is the downstream limit of work.
Yep.
In the stream and up on the bank.
Right.
I just want to see that on the plan. Where's that going to go? The other comment was the new stream bed is going to be river rocks 2 to 4 inches. Question is, how do you know that is in kind with the natural downstream bed material? Because part of what I don't want to do is make part of this stream that's restored look radically different than the rest of the stream, because the velocity of the stream is going to have a sediment appetite, and it's going to have a certain sediment load depending on the velocity of the stream. I'm just kind of asking that question. I know this is a small segment, but I'm imagining if that area is just filled with 2 to 4 inch rock alone in that, let's see, it's maybe 40 or 50 foot reach, it's not going to look natural. It's not going to function natural. And so that's one of my comments is the stream bed material. Also for that stream, how deep are you planning on excavating into the actual stream? That's a question I have.
It does vary a little bit. I'll answer both your questions. In the proposed channel, right now we have an existing 94 approximately along here. A couple spot shots that say 94 in here, 95.
So about 2 to 3 feet.
So 2 to 3 feet. And then,
but you have to go deeper to create the stream bed. So how deep are you going to you know, sort of redevelop the bed channel?
Yeah, so about 2 feet below here would be the new channel of what's existing. And then 6 inches below that is in theory the river rocks. And I do agree with your point. The difficulty is matching an intermittent stream channel that's been existing so long is a challenge, to say the least, because there's such a mix of different materials, and over time sediment, lots of silt, lots of gravel. So we went with kind of a vanilla, you know, river rock approach here. I do think that that's an element that maybe we can look out in the field together and come up with something that might make a little more sense. River rock, you know, would you know, prohibit the flow a little bit or enhance the flow either way. I think that's something that could be adjusted slightly. But the challenge is where do you get that specific material?
And if a better alternative is some mixture, not just pure river rock. You know, so just to kind of back up, you said that, like, so the 91.8, the 91.7, the 91.6, you're going to go 6 inches below that to set up the river, to add the new drainage channel.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to know how that number. Thank you. One question I had about the banks is, so if you notice the existing 24-inch RCP pipe, it kind of crosses the road kind of at a east-northeast like trend angle there. You know what I'm saying? Kind of goes up at an angle. So the water that comes through there is almost like physically pointed at that northern bank if there's a big flow coming through that pipe, right? If there's a sudden storm, sudden surge through that pipe, making that northern bank more prone to erosion anyway. That's what I'm seeing on this plan. And so what I'm wondering is, can some additional erosion protection be put in that bank? At least within like the 20 feet on the north bank near that outfall. Because if we don't fix the bank right, we're just going to be back here, you know, in 5 to 10 years. So, you know, of course at low flows, this doesn't matter. You know, I think everything's going to work out fine as designed. But something I want to sort of like ask is, what are the chances that northern bank right now, as designed, do we need additional erosion protection on that northern bank, that 20 feet? And I'm just going to leave that as a question to be addressed. So that pipe drops about a half a foot. I don't know what the typical standing water is in that pipe. So from the upstream invert to the discharge invert, it's about a half foot drop. It's 91.6 to 91.1. And then the very first elevation, the very next elevation that you're going to establish in the stream is 91.8. So there is also a potential right there, right within the 5 to 10 feet next to that pipe. There's also a potential for additional pooling and ponding, you know, and additional. So there's a part of me that kind of wonders, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. Is there going to be substantial pooling and ponding? Well, it's probably not. Probably not, but it's just something to mention. In terms of the plantings, yeah, let's get maybe as actually. I'm fine with the plantings if the rest of the commission agrees with that. One of the questions I had about the construction schedule is what happens if there's a storm during the work, and we can address that in the order of conditions. I want to make sure the plantings are only native. In the monitoring part of the report, during monitoring, we'd love to get updates so that conservation hears what's going on a regular basis. And that is it. That is all I had. So at this point, I'm going to briefly open it up to the public and ask that this be continued. So I'd like to invite members of the public to raise their hand if they want to comment on this. Not seeing anything. Are you seeing anything, Chuck? No.
No, I'm not.
Not seeing anything. Thor, I threw a lot at you. Sorry about that. Did you want to consider it and respond in writing or respond after this meeting?
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thor, could you turn off the screen share?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, I think you brought up a couple valid points there. You know, I will say that what happens out there now is there is a little bit of a pool at the outlet of the pipe, and it does help slow the velocity. And you'd be surprised that portions of that northern bank right near the outlet are actually in decent condition and aren't eroding very much despite a pretty steep slope. Personally, I'm not overly concerned that, you know, with the addition of that, the 12-inch coconut core logs staked in, I think that would be adequate on that section. I'm not sure it would be difficult to armor it further than that. Perhaps there could be additional rocks maybe placed along the inner limit of the to dissipate velocity up against that, at least in the early stages, perhaps in the spring. You know, with the elevation discrepancy there, I think that's a fair point. We tried to match what was at the outlet, and I agree. We didn't look as closely at the inlet elevation, but right alongside that is a 91.9. So you'll see in the elevations, when we're in the field, that there's a bit of a weird pooling action there. So the water level comes up a bit. But certainly if we need to drop the stream bed a little bit to flow more consistently with the outlet, I think that's something we could look at. But I would love to get out there with the commission and look at all of this and make a plan that everyone's happy with.
Okay. So at this point, I'll entertain a discussion on when we can get out there. Usually it's, I don't know, we've picked Tuesday mornings. This particular week's been challenging because it's a short week. But we typically pick the Monday or Tuesday before a meeting, is my memory. So either 8:30 or 8 on a Monday or Tuesday. So do those
The 13th and the 14th, or the 20th and the 21st. And yeah, it can be before a meeting or to give time to digest what we saw. It could be on the 13th or the 14th. We do have a site visit that we have to do at 1503 Main Street also.
Or do you have a preference for that? Any of those dates?
No preference.
Okay. What about the rest of the commission? What about availability on those dates? I'm gonna look at
They're
my
all
calendar.
fine with me.
Okay. I cannot do the 14th. I can do the 13th. I'd love to spread it out so we don't cram everything into a meeting week.
The 13th certainly works fine for me. All 4 of those dates actually work for me.
I think if,
The 14th is by far the worst for me. So I'm glad that it's not good for you too, Anika. So the other 3 are fine by me.
I think for me, if we're going to do either the 13th or the 20th, it would have to be a little bit later, more like 9 than 8:30.
Okay. I don't know if we want to meet at 8 o'clock on Monday morning anyway. I mean,
No.
9. How about 9 o'clock on the 13th? How's that sound? Everyone? Yes.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to just put it in my calendar while I have this here. So. Okay. And at this point, I'll entertain a motion to continue to September 22.
I just forgot. Did we see if anyone attending the meeting had
We did.
comments? Okay.
I
Is there a
move
motion?
to continue the hearing on 445 Pearl Street enforcement order to September 22nd.
I second.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
We discussed that too long. We've lost roll call order. Joe Kernahan in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Brian, did you vote?
I did. As part
Okay,
of that,
sorry.
stepping on each other, but I'm in favor.
All right. So there it is. It's continued to the 22nd. We have a site visit Monday, the 13th at 9 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing you guys Monday.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Thor.
Okay. At this point, I think we have an added hearing. It's 118 Lila. Is there, do you want me to read the notice that you handed me?
That'd be great.
Okay, great. So at this point, we're going to discuss a notice of intent. Do we have a DP number for this? Do you happen to know?
I'll check while you're reading.
Okay, we're gonna open a new hearing. Sorry, excuse me for a second. We're gonna open a new hearing pertaining to 118 Lila Lane, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetland Protection Act, and Reading General Bylaw, Section 7.1, Wetlands Protection. We are holding our public hearing to consider the notice of intent filed by David and Lauren Fazio to construct an in-ground pool and paver patio, approximately 1,600 square feet, and associated appurtenances at an existing single-family property. All work is within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed on the Town of Reading Conservation page under current projects. So Chuck is the applicant and
Hi,
or
John
the-
Barrows and Dave Fazio are right here on the screen. And
Okay.
John, do you want me to share the screen with you so you can post your plans, or would you like me to do that?
No, that'd be great if you want.
Sure thing. So I'm going to make you a co-host, and you have control of posting and sharing screens.
Okay.
John,
Good
if you
evening.
could just tell us what you want to do, and show us the area.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is, John Barrows from Salem Village Consulting. I am representing David and Lauren Fazio this evening. And as you can see from the plan up in front of you,
the plan's not up, John. No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, not yet.
Huh. Do you want to put it up on yours, Chuck? I have it up on my screen. I don't know.
Sure. Let's see if I can get this thing going.
You can go ahead and describe it while we're waiting for that.
Sure. So
you see that?
I can.
Okay.
That's great. So as you can see from the plan, the applicants would like to build or construct a pool in their backyard directly behind their home at 118 Lila Lane. As mentioned in the notice, decking is about 1,600 square feet. Besides the pool, the spa and the pool and the paver decking, they'll also have some pool equipment and a propane tank to take care of the heating of the pool. All of the pool and landscaping will take place about 35 outside of the 35-foot no-build buffer. There will be a slight amount of grading outside of that, excuse me, but well outside of the 25-foot no disturb. The area that is proposed is presently very well manicured lawn that goes right down to what's been designated as a Bvw. So I think in the notice of intent, you can see there's some photographs of what the backyard looks like. As part of the project, we are in the Aquifer Protection District. We are proposing to do a small groundwater recharge drainage system. That drainage system will capture a portion of the pool decking. There's going to be a small trench grate in the back area of the pool decking, as well as there's an existing patio that has a small catch basin yard drain in it right now. That yard drain drains off to the drainage swale in the rear into the Bvw. That would be directly connected to the groundwater recharge system. The existing 4-inch PVC pipe would be disconnected, so there wouldn't be any direct connection. We're also grabbing a portion of the roof to compensate for the additional impervious that's created on the project. We will, prior to construction and will be maintained during construction, there will be an erosion control line of straw wattles. As far as the drainage system goes, it's going to be, your typical Caltech HDP chamber system in an envelope of stone. It's been sized for a 10-year event. I think that pretty much covers it. Or if you had any additional questions on that, the applicant is with me tonight, David Fazio, if you have any questions on the construction materials and things on schedule and what have you.
Okay, I'm going to open this up to the Conservation Commission for questions. Go ahead, Martha.
One question I had was the filter in the corner of the pool area. Is that going to need to be backwashed? And if so, what direction will the water go if you're draining water out of the pool?
So I believe the new filter system that they're going to be installing, it doesn't need backwashing. So a lot of the new systems don't require it.
Okay.
I don't have a pool, so I'm glad you could answer that, David.
And then, for example, this summer, there's been a lot of rain and the pools have been filling up and you need to decrease the level of water in the pool or it's just going to overflow. Is that something that you could get the water to go into the drain and then into that recharge system rather than, say, dumping it out the back of the pool across the lawn into the wetland?
I don't see any reason why, if they were going to pump it, that they could do that. It's going to be the pool edging, I would imagine, is going to be level all the way around, so it would have to be directed on purpose to that proposed drain in the deck. And that should be a small amount just to get it below the to give it some capacity, I would imagine, for the next storm.
Right.
Martha, can I jump on your statement quickly?
Sure.
I'm leading towards asking these questions now because of the weather events we've had, but that just brings up another point that you do typically lower the water in the pool for the winter by probably a couple of feet, which could be, 1,000 gallons of water. So that brings up the same question is, where would that go? So into the drain in the patio again?
Well, it wouldn't go in the pad. There's going to be a trench drain in the paver section behind the pool. So I would imagine they could drain it into that and it would be recharged.
I believe that's shown as a long, narrow green rectangle not far from where the cursor is right now.
Yeah, that's correct. Right.
No, further to your left, Chuck.
To your left, yeah.
Yeah, right in the middle of the patio.
Right, yeah, just up a little bit.
I can hardly see that. This thing right here?
Yeah.
Oh, I can see these green lines, right, are going right into that infiltration.
Right.
So it must be in here somewhere.
Yeah, fortunately, there's very, very good soils out there. We did a test pit and really coarse gravels and sands there. So, it's really receptive to recharge.
And then I went out and did a site visit today, and Dave was telling me that the shrubs that he's shown around the edges of the pool as sort of little green shrub pictures, he's planning to make those native shrubs around the edges. And I think that was my only questions.
Okay, Brian, I think you're up.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Thanks, John.
I don't think I have anything either.
Joe?
Do other commission members have a copy of this plan in front of them? Because I'm checking my email. Okay, no, good. I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah.
So obviously
I do not have that plan. I did not get that plan electronically.
Okay, cool. So I may have more questions once I can get a better look at it. People already beat me to the pool questions and the pump it down for the winter questions. I don't think I have any other questions at this time.
Okay, Carl? Oh, sorry. John, I skipped you. I'm sorry. John, did you?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Carl?
Yeah, I guess I don't right now. But typically we'll review planting at some point, right? I mean, things like that.
Well, some of us have to get this plan so we can look at it a little bit
yeah,
further.
right. So I guess I'll save my comments for the next.
Okay. And if you do have comments as you're reviewing it in between meetings, send them to Chuck so he can forward them, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
To the applicant. So, Chuck, do you want to jump in I've got comments, but you can
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, sure. About the plan. I think what happened was there were two emails, and John, when you corrected the old Reading notice of intent you sent me,
Okay.
I quickly saw that there was a plan in the back pages, and I only sent that out to the commission, but I didn't look at it closely enough to see that it was existing conditions. So they didn't see this plan. So I'm sorry for that mistake. I did have one question. And when I did see this plan, I noticed that the patio area is enormous, and it stretches right down to the 35-foot zone. And I'm wondering if all that patio is needed, and if it could be brought back a little bit with the shape of the freeform pool, to be further back, almost to eliminate this area that's, and I know it's probably a walkway into that lower area, but right in here, where you could just be just a little bit further back than, and just reduce material here. And I think that is my only comment. I did review this plan, and I know that you're further back than the 35-foot. You have permanent alteration within the 35-foot zone. And I wanted to ask if you picked that up in your fee calculation, because that's one of the things we ask for. But outside of those two things, I didn't have any other comments.
I did not put, it's a slight grading since the pool is going to be basically level. It is raised a little bit towards that 35-foot. So just to, make up for what's basically about a foot difference in grade there. There's a slight amount of grading back there.
Mm-hmm.
But that would all be, brought back to manicured lawn. So it wouldn't be any different than what exists right now. As far as pulling back the decking, I know Dave really wants a connection to the backyard. So he's hoping to keep something, like a gate there so that he can, get off to the backyard from that point. He is proposing pervious pavers, and so, even though it is, good sized deck, he's going to spend the money to, make a porous surface, and that with the combination of the recharge system, I think we've really.
Yeah, but you're just continually degrading what's out there. I mean, this surface, although it's pervious, it's lawn would be considered, more advantageous to the environment than this, because of the heat island effect and for the encroachment into this area. So that's why I brought it up. And getting back to I know that you're saying that it's just going to go back to lawn, and if I blinked and missed this project, it would be the same. But we do have that, and we've asked other people to pay for this and to calculate this into their fees. And I'm not sure you had the wetland. Now that I'm thinking about this, maybe I should just say I'm going to look at the fees again and make sure that you've captured all. It's usually the wetland fee that's missed, the verification of the line, and this permanent alteration.
I'm sure that's not a problem, whatever you think is appropriate.
It's just trying to be consistent with that. That's all I wanted to mention. And anyways, that one section here, if I mentioned it, maybe you guys can think about it. If it happens, I think that would be great. There is a lot of, you have the existing structure where the cast basin is, and now you have the pool and and the patio paver area around it, and then this whole area is lawn right up to the edge of the BVW.
So,
Anika?
yeah, thanks. I'm just going to jump right in. So that's a good segue because I was wondering how the Bvw line was established. How did you know the line was where it is, shown on the plan?
Yeah, so I can actually speak to that. So I had Chuck come out early on when we were starting to get going on this plan and some ideas around it. So Chuck was kind enough to come out on site, and that was an agreed line of where we started. So we kind of worked the 35 and the 25 feet from that particular area.
Okay, and Chuck, that's just to verify, that's the line you remember and you recall.
Sure, this was early on, and if you could look at the site, it looked natural. I mean, my recollection wasn't, I think this pond stretched to the left and to the right, or this wetland area. Is it a pond or a wetland area?
It's a wetland.
Dave?
It's uphill.
Yeah, it's like, to be honest, I was told it was kind of a man-made
but there was water
area,
in it, right?
water in it. There's vegetation that's in it, and it does extend, you know, to the right and to the left of our plot.
And I think it had a significant break in slope, something that could be spotted real easy, and that's probably what we keyed in on. I guess I didn't know at that point that what I had said was going to become the plan, you know, delineation. But if you want to go out and look at that, then I'm perfectly willing to show the commission how I came about this line.
Well, I think it's worth verifying that line because first of all, the line crosses topography contours. That's one thing that's kind of a flag to me. A second thing is it just happens to be perfectly coincidental with the limits of lawn. And that's another thing that, you know, I don't always see the edge of BVW always match up with the lawn limits. So there's two things there that kind of make me think maybe this line should be kind of looked at a little bit more to just make sure it's the right line. Because once that line's established, that's where all those setbacks get set. And usually when somebody puts a plan before us, we have them hire wetland scientists to go out and do soil cores and provide data sheets describing the soils at different locations. And then we go out, we verify each kind of turning point on that line. You know, so I think the BVW line needs to be checked. That's my first comment. The second comment was, I'm going to skip it because it says that I need to see where the patio and pool are on the property, because what I had was the existing conditions plan. So that was the only plan I was looking at. So I'll take a look at the correct plan. Happy to review that and provide comments about the proposed work. If you're going to be doing work inside the setbacks, the offsets, we're going to have to see like a variance application, which means alternatives analysis. Like, so how come you had to go into the setback area and you couldn't avoid going into that setback area? And kind of to Chuck's point earlier, you know, reorienting the pool, redesigning the deck layout, in my opinion, you know, those are reasonable things to discuss. So explain alternatives, like why the design has to look like this, and it can't be anything else that protects the interests of the act. I'm wondering if you are proposing additional impervious, are you proposing to mitigate that by setting up some additional plantings within the 25 or 35 foot area? And if you are proposing some additional plantings there, which is something we welcome, we need to see a plan for that. The backyard shed needs to be added to the plan. I didn't see it on the existing conditions. I saw it on the aerial. I'm not sure I see it here. So we need to show that shed where it exists, if it still exists. And the last comment, and then I'll let you guys kind of give me your responses, is since the whole property is within the Aquifer Protection District, I just happen to know, and I'm a little concerned that there might be some sort of like miss, like we're looking at this for this particular project, but zoning is not going to look at this in terms of an aquifer protection overlay district. There are requirements for that aquifer protection overlay district about that max out, as you show on the existing conditions plan, that max out impervious cover. And according to the existing conditions plan, the lot has already maxed out impervious cover. So if we approve this plan, are we breaking? And I know that's kind of mixing apples and oranges, but it just happened to be something I was aware of and something I needed to bring up.
Yeah, if I could just jump in there. Since it is a zoning issue, Dave has hired a land surveyor, and this plan's based on his plan, the existing conditions plan that you have in front of you. So he's dealing with that zoning issue. So we'd have to obviously get that approved through zoning as well. So that would be kind of a separate, you know, through the building inspector. And so we would have to meet the, you know, impervious cover for the Aquifer Protection District.
Okay, so so it seems like you want to get, so what's your sequence of getting those approvals that you would prefer to do?
Well, we prefer to get to know that we have a viable plan with the Conservation Commission first, I believe. And then obviously would have to deal with the building inspector as far as getting the zoning approval for the Aquifer Protection District.
Does that go, Chuck, does that go through the building inspector, or do you guys have to file with zoning?
The building inspector reviews Aquifer Protection District, but they have the engineering department do the review. And my understanding is that this applicant only needs to create, or so it's, I'm not gonna, so he only needs to create the amount of infiltration to offset what he doesn't have. So if he uses up 15% of his property, or 2,500 square feet, whichever is greater, and he's over by 35, like let's say 3,500 square feet, for that 1,000 square feet, he has to make up the difference and infiltrate that amount of impervious. That's my understanding. So they can engineer their way out of this. But there's probably particulars I don't know about it that the engineering department will talk about, but this is what I've seen happen.
Yeah, I've been through you know, other projects that aren't involved with Conservation Commission, and that's, you're right, Chuck, that, you know, for that extra percentage of impervious cover, we make up for that with a recharge system. So,
that's right.
And the engineering department reviews it and approves it.
So that, and those changes have a lot to do with us not being on the MWRA and all that, and, you know, so we do have that. We still do have the Aquifer Protection District, but the bylaw has changed in the last 2-3 years or something like that. So it's been like that for a little bit of time.
I mean, you know, it's not my area of town expertise. I did look at the regulations for zoning in the Aquifer Protection District. It seemed pretty straightforward to me, according to those regulations, but I'll just watch and see what happens. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to continue. Actually, let's ask if members of the public have any comments. So members of the public, if you would please raise your hand if you have any questions or comments on this. Okay, I don't see any. Any other final questions? Go ahead, Martha.
I just had one question in all of this conversation about the patio area being so large and wanting to reduce the amount of impervious surface and stuff like that. Is there a reason why the design has the patio come right up to the building? Because when I was there this afternoon, there's a lovely area of landscaping that is to the left of the deck, just along the backside of the building. And I wonder if, I know it's not on the side of the pool at the 35-foot zone, but would that help with the aquifer protection and all of that if that area was left as landscaped with shrubs and plants? And I don't know why the patio has to be so wide at that area. That's why I engineered it that way.
Well, I think Dave had, you know, a pool designer come in and put together a nice layout for them. Whether that could be modified, I'd have to defer to Dave on that. I believe that there is still some landscaping that's going to run parallel with the back of the house. There's a section there that's probably going to, you know, stay in place. It's a little tricky to see, but I don't know if he's going directly right up to the back of the building there. I think there is a little portion of it that is going to be landscaping. You know, and as far as he is going to be adding a bunch of landscaping around, you know, 3/4 of the pool area too. So, you know, the project is, you know, is going to include some, you know, nice plantings. And I think, as you discussed with Dave before, that they would be native plantings. And, you know, I'm sure he's open to discuss what type of plants, if there's, you know, some wildlife benefit with those plantings. It could be open for discussion, I guess.
Just to jump in, those native plantings, totally welcome native plantings just about anywhere in Reading, everywhere and anywhere. There is a bit of a spatial disconnect between the actual vegetation that's providing habitat off the lawn and the plantings over by the pool. So plantings, native plantings are good, but where they're planted is also very important and substantial in terms of protecting habitat and flood storage and,
well,
you know,
that's one thing
the interests of the
that
act.
maybe we should have detailed a little bit better is, and I think that's probably the reason why Chuck was comfortable with the line there is, I think when you go out there, you'll see that, you know, it's pretty high in the elevations of, you know, that drainage swale where that edge of lawn ends up. And then after the edge of lawn, there's arborvitae and some other plantings down there, whether, you know, they'd be considered good wildlife plants. You know, that's not my expertise. So we could pick those up and show that there is a pretty good buffer there besides just lawn for that area.
John, is there a previous plan for that was from the original subdivision development that shows the wetland buffer line that the applicant has? Mr. Fazio, do you have a previous plan?
The only plan that I have was actually from the previous owners, and it was just an older plot plan.
Does it show the wetland line?
It does not. It's actually pretty similar to what we're seeing.
I was able to see the subdivision plan, which is really just a property line plan, through the registry website. There's a possibility that maybe the engineering department has something still on record. I know it's, you know,
because that wetland line needs to be verified. You know, I understand that Chuck, if Chuck didn't understand that he was.
So Anika, in the past, Rebecca Longley, we would go out and review wetland lines on projects like this. And, you know, that's true that I didn't know that it was going to be the wetland lines, but I think the next step would be the commission to go out there and review it. I think that's all that
what I
needs
was
to
going
be
to
said.
propose. That's what I was going to propose.
Yep. It's not unusual to, like on a small scale project, I mean, we're 35 feet away. Again, I didn't know all the particulars. I think we were just jumping off on this project. So I think it deserves to be looked at, but I bet you, you know, we'll see, you know, when we're out there, what, if it looks right or not. So.
Okay.
So if I could just jump in, if there's certain things that you'd like staked, I believe there's like 35-foot offset stakes out there and the location of the recharge area. If you'd like anything else additionally staked off, if you could let us know so I can have the surveyor put those in the proper spots.
I was going to say, usually, I mean, it doesn't have to be an official surveyor, but if you could sort of show the area where.
Yeah, that's no problem. And Nika, some questions that you had that I'd just like to kind of go through. The shed is no longer on the property.
Okay.
So that has been since that's been taken down and removed. Also, in the comments with adjusting kind of the plan and the decking. So if you see in that back area of the pool and the spa, there's some shrubbery that goes along a fence. I do have plans to extend that a little bit further left going toward that gate area, but the main purpose of having kind of that walkway is really mainly there's going to be a gate that's going to access into that nice yard space that we have back there. So we do have 2 young kids. You know, we really want to have that gate for convenience, for safety purposes. So, you know, when you come out on the property, I can kind of show you guys all that. And as far as shrubbery on the opposite side of the fence, I'm all about it.
Can you show the fence? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I'm
so
just
the
having
fence,
trouble seeing
the fences is actually right along that 35-foot offset, no build. So I have it located right on the line. And then it comes into the house. So it's basically an L shape from the property line that heads into the home.
Okay. Hopefully we'll see it on the plan. I don't, if you happen to mark up.
Yeah, it's just a dark line. I should have had something denoting it a little better.
That's okay. If you can show it to us, mark up this plan or just sort of highlight where it is, and just say this is where the fence line is with the gate over here so that we can orient that. That'd be great. So thank you for adding that additional information. At this point, go ahead, Carl.
Can I said it says pervious paver, and I can't pan the whole plan here, but could we have a detail of that paving and subgrade there?
Sure. I have, I think Dave gave me the vendor, trying to think of the name of the company, but they have kind of a standard detail.
Yeah, you could just send it to Chuck and Chuck will send it to us.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you.
So one more question. So I do want to give some pushback. I think, Dave, you need to go back to the designer. I understand what you're saying about you wanted access to the back area, but that pathway and when that, you know, if a designer is just going to freeform the design and then add in the steps, and it just created a much larger area in one spot, then to me, what looks like it's needed. Plus you're pushing up against the 35-foot zone. It may not happen, but I would like to have that you to have that conversation with your designer to see if things can be brought back, including that grading back beyond the 35-foot zone. Sure. That would be great to know that it can or can't happen and you've had a serious conversation. So that's all I would add to the proceedings here.
You mentioned are you going to do an independent site walk, or is that?
No, I think we should grab as many commissioners since I need to talk about the line that I delineated and to find out who's available so I can just go over how that happened. So again, we have the 13th, which we're meeting at 9. We have 1503 Main Street, and now we have this one here. So I could go out there with the vice chair and we could come to a conclusion, or more commissioners. The vice chair just has, and me have more opportunities if it's just us two, or if everyone's curious, then we'll have to find some time.
Well, I'm certainly curious, and I have significant flexibility in my schedule, so I'd like to be there.
Great. So the 14th, you said you weren't available.
Back on one of the other visits and say after 445 Pearl Street, those of us who are
Sure.
available could continue over to here.
That does not work for me, unfortunately. Pushing it to 9 o'clock is already cutting it kind of close with that one for me, I'm afraid. So I can't do anything after. 14th is wide open for me, and ironically, it looks like yes, Brian can't make it and I can. So
Schedule without me
yeah.
for a second. I'm sorry, I have to take an urgent call. So please schedule.
So Joe, is this something that you if we just defined it to the line, is that something?
I mean, I'm as always, I'm curious. You know, I have looking at this, and I have thoughts looking at the, why is the fence where it is, and things yeah, the
Well, could we
if I can't make it, I can't make it. So
could we go with the 20th or the 21st, or possibly even the 15th?
I'm good. The 15th or the 16th. We can, if it's a small, whatever.
Yeah.
Brian said he had availability.
8:30 on one of those 2 days, the 15th or 16th, or even 8 o'clock if people want to do 8 o'clock.
8:30 on either of those days works fine for me. I mean, 8 o'clock actually works too.
So 8 or 8:30 on the 16th is preferable. That's a Thursday, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, let's do the Thursday.
Dave, how does that
16th.
fit in with getting your kids off to school? What time would you be available?
So the kids, around 8 o'clock, 8:15 is when they're due in. So I could be home for 8:30.
Okay.
Operating under very similar constraints. So I think 8:30 or a little after means I would not need to means I could still do drop off.
Shall we go for about 8:30 on the 16th, and Joe join us as soon as he can get there?
Works for me.
That's fine by me.
Nico, we're talking about the 16th at 8:30, 16th of September.
Okay, that looks good as long as I'm not in jury duty, which starts on Tuesday. So if I'm still good, I'll try to be there. And unfortunately, I got something I got to hop off for. I really apologize to everybody. I'm going to ask Martha to take over and fill in. So if that's okay.
Okay. Will
and I see there are other people here who are present as participants and interested to find out how the rest of this meeting goes, and I apologize. So.
Okay, we'll see you.
We should vote on continuing first, and then if you've already agreed on a meeting time, the 16th at 8:30, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, I'll put it on my schedule. I should be able to get there. So I'll entertain a motion to continue to the 22nd with a site visit on the 16th.
I move to continue the hearing on 118 Lila Lane to September 22nd. And we'll do a site visit on the 16th.
I'll second that.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. And I apologize, everybody. I think everything's fine, but I gotta go. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Looks to me like we've used up everything before old and new business. So, Chuck, do you care?
Yeah.
Do we start with old and new business?
Sure. John and Dave, thank you. You're welcome to stick around and see how the rest of this meeting works. But if not, Dave will see you soon on, looks like the 16th. Okay.
Great, guys. Thanks for your time.
Have a good night.
So for the first thing, certificate of compliance request for 4A Carnation Circle. So I know that some members had questions about that. I don't know if anyone made it out to the site, but if anyone can give us kind of a rundown of what went on at Carnation Circle. This was part of a bigger build out for that whole development in Carnation Circle. So the facades are on the order of conditions, and they're also the when you hear Azalea Circle and we have those two lots that are being developed, those are the last remaining lots. So that's all I'll say. I think maybe Brian, I was wondering if you went out there, did that?
Yeah, I did. So I looked at it, the sign saying beyond this is private and what have you. These are buildings with, it looks like maybe 4 units to a building, something like that. Individual buildings with individual parking lots. The one that we're talking about here in particular is clearly up against the wetlands. The issue that I had/have is that I'm not really sure what it was that caused the long delay in a COC in the first place. So it's hard to, actually impossible for me to go there and to see if whatever it had been corrected, because I just didn't know what it was. So I looked there, I didn't see anything egregiously amiss, which doesn't necessarily prove anything. But so that's about all I can really say, is that I don't know what the issue was. If you look at the conditions, a number of them were timed. Like this had to be done within a year, and this had to be done within this time period. Perhaps they weren't done within that time period. I just don't know about that.
But those conditions weren't for this lot. They're for the whole subdivision.
Right.
So usually the remaining homeowner has no control and sometimes doesn't even know they have an open order of conditions on their property. So with the banking crisis back in, I don't know, like 2012 or something like that, the requirements got really stringent and these things started to be uncovered. And so now it's part of the package when you refinance or sell, that they really search the registry of deeds and they uncover these older orders of conditions. Now, back in the day, the owner probably didn't finish this up. You guys don't know the history of those 2 vacant lots, but it doesn't surprise me that this was kind of left open. And sometimes it's because there's a bond on the site and things had to be done. There was a cracked piece of paving, water quality unit wasn't put in correctly, but the bond was significantly less than the work would take to pay for it. So it was just left alone and just forgotten about. It's not a requirement for the Conservation Commission to track these things down. It says it in the order of conditions that it's up to the applicant to submit the request for a certificate of compliance. Now, some towns do that, And we actually only have one that hasn't been issued since I've been here, but it's not because, I think it's just because that we work with the building department and we've been requesting the application as part of the occupancy permit application. And so that's what I know about it. I really have become, you know, unexcited about these sites if there's not a specific thing on the lot that needed to be done. So if there was like at Small Lane, they needed, so those two orders of conditions, they had to do some vegetation removal and some replanting. We could see that. We could see that that wasn't done and it was filled with invasives, so we took action on it. So that's the kind of correction that would need to take place if we saw it. If there was yard waste in one of these lots that had to come out, then that's perfectly acceptable that you wouldn't agree to this before the yard waste is pulled out of there. Or recent tree cutting or recent, you know, recent abuses of the act or the bylaw. So anyways, I don't know, Joe, it looked like.
I mean, I did roughly the same as Brian. I went by, I think I set foot in that subdivision once before, so I did know it existed. But hadn't been looking at it through the conservation lens. And again, didn't see, I mean, I guess I didn't go poking around behind buildings. I suppose if there was anything of interest to the commission, it would most likely be on the, you know, part of the property furthest from the street. I didn't go poking around. But otherwise, yeah, I was guessing this was more of an administrative oversight than a reflection of a real problem. But
I like that. Okay, that seems to sum it up. Martha?
So is there a motion to issue a certificate of compliance, or am I jumping the gun? Is there any more discussion you need to offer? Anybody in the audience who has any comments on this, please use the raise hand function.
I'm concerned about someone in the audience who's having a hard time connecting. I don't see that.
I think it's the same person twice.
Oh, we have, okay. Okay. Good on, yep.
Okay, so seeing no raised hands, any further comments from any other members of the commission? So, is there a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 4A Coronation Circle?
I'll make a motion to issue COC for 4A Carnation Circle.
second.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Okay. What shall we move on to next?
Jim Castellano, the unauthorized cutting, clearing, that one. The planting has happened. You got that email, and we want to set up a site visit with the commission to review the planting. This may have to go into the next week just to get everyone there. A Monday or Tuesday would be the 20th or 21st. I'm not sure we have any time with members before that, but that's, I mean, I still have time during the week of the 5th.
Anybody on the commission want to propose what's going to work best for them?
Well, Chuck, you talked about the 20th or 21st. I could do either of those, especially around our typical time.
John, Joe?
I could likewise do either one. The 20th or the 21st would both be fine.
assuming John and Carl, I don't see any chiming in. John, do you have any comments on that?
I could do either the 20th or the 21st, but would have to be closer to 9 on the 20th.
You know, I'm okay with 9. I don't know how the rest of everyone feels. I know that Carl usually checks this out on his own, but I see that you've unmuted yourself. Carl, do you have any comments?
I mean, for me, it's just until the winter, it's going to be afternoon. So I can just run by, I drive by it. You know, if I can just go by on the 21st, I could be happy to take a stroll by.
I'll let, so what happened the last time, just take that. I will let the owner know, which is Jim Castellano, know that we'll have one commission come and by on his own in the afternoon, and the rest of us will do, was it the 21st?
Or the 20th at 9 o'clock is what I heard, which
20th at 9 o'clock. Going once?
Going twice.
Good. Okay, great. That's that. Put it in your calendars. So the regulations are just not on this, is also going to be continued again. I'm still waiting for, it's come up in many emails. And I keep on saying I'm waiting for the town council to review it. And what happened is they made a draft of a proposal. We commented on that draft and marked it up, and we just haven't had that review come back to us yet. And so, but this is the same site where the developer was asked to, you know, pay for third-party review, and that hasn't come in either. So I'm not sure, even if, you know, I'm not sure what's going on with this site at this point. So moving on to the next thing, the DOA for Veterans Way, I've mentioned millions of times, they haven't got back to us with a plan, so we can't approve that. And then just below that, we had a conservation meeting with the engineering department. So I know Martha Moore was there, but just to prime it, we had that meeting and we wanted to talk about Fairbanks Marsh, which is just beyond Matera Cabin on the same side of the road. And if you're looking for that, it's going to be really hard to find. But if you see a muddy area that people pull in, that's basically between 1503 and the next house, that's the beginning of Fairbanks Marsh. That's actually a parking area, and there's a path going through there. It gets quite wet, but the Open Land Trust asked us to mention this to the DPW department, that the work on Route 28 by the Mass Highway, they were tearing up that turnaround. And in the past, when this has happened, they've backbladed it and seeded it for us. So we had that request. There was some miscellaneous calls about certain properties that me and Mike Hannaford, the tree warden, had to look at. And then there was a comment about that I got from someone about motorbikes in town forest. And so it was decided that Jane Kinsella would contact our media person and put out a media blast about the rules and regulations for open space, conservation land, and the town forest land, highlighting that there are no motorbikes allowed in these areas and how dangerous they can be. There was a pickup of the kiosk and the picnic table. The picnic table will be installed over the weekend in the open field at the Millette site, and everyone's been there. That's usually where we drive down off Willow Street and park, and there's a lone tree out in the middle of the field. That's the area where that picnic table is going. And the kiosk was put in today, actually, by the DPW department, and I just got a text from one of the Trails Committee members saying that it was a great job that they did. And I always like the crew that worked with us today, because they're really attentive, and they listen to what we say, and they just do good work. But the kiosk was put in across from the old P&S store, which is on Lowell Street. So now that entrance right there and that's right across the street also from Intervale, like Intervale Road. And then there was some discussion about cutting some trees down over at 38 Warren Ave and some yard waste that was dumped there. At the meeting, it was said that there's a lot of yard waste there, but I guess maybe I'm just used to a lot bigger piles of yard waste. I didn't think there was so much there. Seemed to be broken up a bit. There was discussion about putting up a sign and doing some other things with the police department, but I don't think it's needed. I don't think we need another sign in that area. It would be nice to get the yard waste picked up. That's my report on the meeting. Martha, did you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay, noting the time, 8 minutes till 10. The next most important thing, I'll say quickly, I contacted Chesapeake and Dean Road. Both are not ready at this moment to have us do a walkthrough to see if they can be taken off the enforcement and issued a all clear signal. So the only other thing is 111 Lila Lane. 111, but these tree requests that are right on the edge of the wetland need to be reviewed by the Conservation Commission, because one tree makes a big difference when you're basically at the border. So I know that Martha went out there, maybe others went out there. I know Anika went out there also. I have one picture from Martha, and I think Martha, you should run this discussion.
Sure. I believe the homeowner is concerned that these trees that are leaning into the yard are dangerous, and there's three marked trees, and then he told me that there was one more that he would like to add to the list. If you look at the base of this picture, you can see there are two trees with marks on them, and I assume the other one in between is the one he's concerned about. And you can see how they lean into the lawn area quite a bit. Yeah, that's one of the trees. I think that one's the one that wasn't marked, but he'd like to add to the list, I believe. And then at the back, that one. The one that Chuck's indicating now has a fair amount of dead wood on it, and it only has sort of this one living branch that's coming way off to the left. Yeah.
Yeah, so is it this one here?
I don't think that one was marked, but that does kind of look like it's going way off to the left. But go further back to the one with the mark at the base, that one. If you go up that tree, you can see where it broke off the main leader, and then the only branch is coming off to the left, up where there's sort of a little sunlight showing.
Sure. So I did go out there with the company that was going to take down the tree, and I was with the evaluator, and he told me that in his opinion, he doesn't think any of these trees will fall down. I didn't think so either, but I do understand they have a severe lean, which I think the house is right over here somewhere. And so there's more issues going on with the fact that they're in the ground. All the roots are buttressed roots. I'm not sure if this, I see this one mark here. I didn't think this one, I think this one needed to be looked at. So this homeowner is proposing planting or paying into the fund. He's happy with either one, but I would suggest planting, because I noticed that in the back, there's kind of like this open area, which could be a vernal pool. I don't know if you noticed that. I mean, there was a tree that was fell back there 4 to 5 years ago because it's barkless and it's kind of rotted. And then just beyond that, there's like this open area that's just all fern, and maybe it's a little bit depressed in that area, and it wasn't the right time of year, so I don't know what was going on back there, but I'm concerned about escape cover, and I'm concerned about shading and these potential vernal pool areas. Obviously it's potential, but do you have any recommendations, Martha?
I did notice the area with a lot of ferns. I also noticed that there were a number of buckthorns right at the edge of the lawn. You can kind of see that at the right-hand edge of this picture. So, there is a little bit of invasives right at the edge of the lawn, but further back, the ferns look pretty well covering the area, and there's not more buckthorn that I could see further back.
Yeah.
One option is to consider trimming the trees where the branches are leaning over toward the house rather than cutting them down altogether. But I would say if they were going to take them down, it would be good to plant replacement trees in the same area where they are being cut down.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody else go out and see them besides me and Nika?
And me.
And Chuck?
Yeah, I think I heard of this address was, so.
My recommendation would be to leave the bigger tree. If the arborist agrees with that, which my cursor is on, and remove the other ones. But because that open area is right there in the back, do a 1-to-1 planting in this area because of the proximity to the wetland. And that doesn't have to be one tree, but a couple of trees would be nice, but it can be shrubs too.
And what about the fourth tree that was at the other corner of the yard?
That happened after I was there. Those ribbons on those trees are from me and the estimator, and we didn't miss a tree. So one was added. So I don't know about this other tree, so I didn't look at it.
Oh, the one I looked at had a ribbon on it, and it's over on the far right where there's some brush on the ground next to it.
Which one was the added tree? Was it this one here?
I think that's the added tree, but I am not sure. The homeowner wasn't able to come out and walk the property with me at the time.
Well, that's leaning. So if it had a ribbon on it, I guess.
No, that one did not have a ribbon. He said he called you on the phone to talk about adding a fourth tree.
He did call me.
And I'm guessing that's the tree he was talking about. He said it was between the other two.
Okay. So
But
this large one in front of us is a question mark in my mind.
And then not in my picture, further over to the right, not in view of this picture, at the far edge of the yard was a tree that you marked. It might be in one of Nika's pictures.
Yeah, I could look for those.
I do have a quick question before you guys go any further. Just maybe it's coincidental, but there's the lawn and then the trees and a little bit of a stone wall to the lower right. Does his property actually go beyond that? Is it just coincidence? There seems to be an edge there. I guess what I'm wondering whether the trees are actually on his property.
I think the property line probably is further back in the woods. And the edge is sort of the edge of
you guys see my screen?
What I see right now is
same picture.
Yeah, it's Martha's one picture is all was what I see.
All right, hold on a second.
So, yeah.
Get this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the shadow of the house to the left, correct? There's a shadow of the straight line there that looks decidedly man-made. Oh, well, the picture just one way, but.
Yeah, let's go back. I'm going to try to show you the property line.
Yeah,
Can you see that now?
Yes.
All right, so
Got it on my screen too.
to the aerial. So you can see, you know, where we're talking about right here.
Yeah.
This must be the tree on the left, which is flying over the house.
And then when you're talking about an area where other trees could be planted, are you talking about where your cursor is now or further back in?
No, right at this edge. I think
Okay.
this area right here is
Yeah.
the open area, potential vernal pool.
Mhm.
And this area right here can be, you know, they can plant in that area.
Okay.
So yeah, so here we are right here. This must be him. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. Those don't look, they don't look horrible. All right. And try to find Anika's pictures.
So what's the significance of the roots being buttressed?
I don't know, it's not usually the deciduous trees that have the shallow roots. They still have a tap root, even though it's close to the wetland area. But you know, the tree needs a certain amount of oxygen, the roots need a certain amount of oxygen, and then the roots become buttressed because it's inundated with water more than 51% of the year. So the roots adapt, and that's why they're growing up instead of in the ground.
Okay.
But I don't know if that means there's no taproot.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of pines, you know, wind-blown pines, but not so much this. I mean, it's, you know, this one here looks like it's on the roof, and it's probably other ones too. Here's one of the buttress roots. Does that come up, or do I have to back out and come back in?
Yeah, you need to back out, I think.
All right. So, I mean, some of the things that I've learned from talking to the arborists are, you look for a root that kind of chokes off another root that grows alongside the tree. That could be a problem. Dead leaves at the top is a sign of a problem. The ground cracked around it, cracks along the trunk of the tree. Those are the kind of things that that they look for. These are just in close proximity to the house, but you know, we've probably, you know, talked about it enough. I mean, I think, you know, we have the tree policy. It's 4 trees can be on the tree policy, but because they're close, the commission can ask for more money, ask for $250 a tree, can ask for more planting, can, you know, a plant for each tree that's taken down. You have the option because it's just a policy.
So it would seem like at the least, whatever trees were taken down, they could then plant some in the same area, right?
Yeah.
And by the time they grow to maybe threaten the house.
I talked about that. We talked about this 15-year span before they actually start really growing. He thought that was his experience with these trees, and he felt fine with that.
Okay.
Do you have a quantity of trees and shrubs, or all trees, or?
Well, in my mind, I may not be what the policy says, but I'd prefer to see trees, just because they take longer to grow and it seems like they'd be longer lasting. But that's just an opinion.
Others? Joe?
And I can't think of any. I have no opinion more sophisticated than, well, there used to be trees there, so there should be trees there. That's not exactly environmental science, but
Yeah, so just quick rule of thumb is you want to create the different layers in a forest: herbaceous, shrub, and tree layer. And I'm not sure if they're, I don't think it, Carl knows a lot about this. Carl usually comes up with all these, so we can't wait until December when Carl gets back in the, in his seat. But what do you think, Carl? Do you think 4 trees come down? I mean, they're right on the edge of the wetland. It's an area just in back. It's going to open right up. So we're going to have direct sunlight just behind these things, right onto what I think is a potential vernal pool.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely, like we did this at the cemetery. I feel like, I forget what project that was, where we discussed the habitat loss and the light loss. It should be easy planting there too, because it's kind of on the edge of the, the forest edge there. So
thinking about some shrubbery as well as some trees, that the in order to give some protection to the, maybe in the short term while the trees are still growing, or
I think the trees will still probably, I mean, if we get a 2.5-inch caliper tree at 14 feet or something, it would probably still create a nice canopy to start.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any recommendations for this wetter than usual area? I mean, I guess we can look and see what's going out there. Obviously, we have maples.
Yeah, there's 3 red maples and 1 oak right now.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
I mean, I think it's always a deciduous tree, but in my experience in my yard, especially too, the white pines, the native eastern white pines, do a great job, and they can definitely handle, wet conditions. So, and that would be, if you've got I don't know what equivalent is, probably like a 7 to 8 foot, or something, installed B&B tree, that would be a pretty good start. So
I'll put that on the list, but I'm going to tell you, he's going to be wary of pines. So let's say three maples and 1 oak, or some combination of oaks, maples, and a white pine.
Okay.
Okay, I'll let him know. This wasn't a permit in front of you. If he doesn't agree, he can submit an application, and that's how we'll do this. That's all I see for the agenda. We didn't get the minutes in time. I just got the 7:14 minutes, so that'll be at the next meeting. So there are no minutes. And I don't know if anyone has anything to say who has joined our meeting. I don't know if Karen Herrick has anything to say, or Bob. I'm not even.
Well, I will put even odds on Bob not being successfully connected at the moment, given that he's tried to connect twice and is still here. But Karen has a hand up.
Oh, Karen has her hand up. Let's unmute and see if she wants to get on video.
No,
Hi,
I
Karen.
didn't start my video. It's 10 o'clock at night. Thank you very much. Our meetings are long. Sheesh. But thank you for all the hard work tonight. Long night. And so I just had a quick question. So, the town has a first right of refusal on some land over along Grove Street. And I was just wondering if you guys had any knowledge of how much of that is gonna come under conservation jurisdiction, like or contains wetlands, or very close.
Well, I'm not sure any of it contains wetlands. to be honest with you. I can pull it up right now and put it on the screen. And we can just talk about it for a second.
Sure.
So here we go. And
well, I'll say the first thing I noticed when I actually biked by it was that a bunch of it is actually very elevated. In fact, I was kind of wondering what they're going to have to do to cut driveways into that if they did want to build houses there someday. But that does probably mean it's dry.
This is going to be really quick. This is the area we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 lots there.
It extends a good deal further than that, but it's not to scale.
There is, here's the wetlands. They're close. Here's DEP's wetlands. Same. Here is the natural resources. And what are we looking for?
Probably in the Aquifer Protection District, right?
It might be. Yeah, it's right in it. It's in the aquifer. Natural resource protection. Now this is natural heritage, and it's Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, and its potential and priority habitat and rare habitat and vernal pool and all that. So it's interesting that this is what we're looking at, but if you look at the overlay of where the golf course is, they stayed out of this priority habitat area. So that's, outside of, I'm going to shut this off, but because you can't really see. Does it get off? There you go. And here's the Aquifer Protection District. Has to get shut off too. So, this wetland probably extends a little bit further. Maybe there's a little bit within these first 2 lots. I think the first lot will be affected. It's wooded at this moment. It's wooded right in here. And so it, as far as natural heritage goes, it does contribute to the rare and endangered habitat and protection there. But I did end up getting a hold of Misty Ann Merrill, who works for Natural Heritage. I've worked with her up in Boxford when I was up there. And both a parking area and a trail and houses, if designed correctly, seem to be, with the information I gave her, possible. So there's no leverage with that. And so for the commission, we want to be hopefully 50 feet away from the wetland area at the end of the day. And it looks like, this first lot is, somewhere in that, there's 63 feet, but to be more accurate, you'd want to check topography and see where we are with that. So no, it's 2-foot elevations. You're up a bit, definitely on this side here. It's a little low here, but I would say, if we're not starting back on that elevation, you might be up somewhere up in that line. So let's check that. And, still 50 feet comes into that lot, kind of in this area here. So it's not you could work around that. So there's no red flags outside of, what you see, and the fact that it's forested and the fact that it's pristine and all that. So the commission would have to look into the Wetlands Protection Act and look into the regulations, knowing that this is untouched land and it requires a little bit more protection than just these usual, managed landscapes that we see here in town. And and where someone's actually just going to do an addition on top of existing lawn. This is different. And so those boundaries probably increase. If they could, if they had an application in front of it, they would probably agree, but how much? There is a regulation that says you can't take, you can't do a taking. You can't take a lot away from somebody because they can get a small house, septic system, all that in place. So that's kind of the evaluation. And it really looked at natural heritage to say that these lots can't be developed because it would be a taking. We'd really find out more about that process when the application goes in, which would be required through any permitting process.
So that's interesting. So how's that going to get flagged if it's not triggered? How's that going to get flagged if there's no wetlands, or is it just for that one lot?
Yeah, so the wetlands definitely don't extend, 200 feet away. I mean, the width of, era is probably within 10 feet elevation, if even less. But maybe there's something happening over here. It could be like a isolated, isolated or something in these areas that's isolated. But how does the wetlands get flagged?
Or if these they don't, well, I'm not sure why the green stops on a straight line. It might be just the way you're using the system. But when
the
you
green is just depicting,
it looks pretty dry. Just
the green is depicting open space. It's not this green here. This green, this dotted is the wetland.
Okay, thank you. So otherwise it's pristine land and we're going to lose a lot of tree cover if 5 houses go in there. And they'll be subject to the Aquifer district, and we're going to lose a lot of trees.
Yeah, and we went through the Aquifer Protection District before. You can engineer your way out of it, so that's not a deterrent, and that doesn't end up being an issue either.
No, I think it's only, no, I mean, you can build a house on, these are half-acre lots, so, they can figure it out.
The only other thing that I would say is that they've talked about this area here, the pump station and the field. We see these right here. And this is within the conservation's jurisdiction. If anything gets modified out here, I don't think there's going to be an issue with people parking out here or maybe expanding beyond like this 35-foot line in this area here. But parking along Stroud Ave, where all those vernal pools are known to exist, has to be thought about when parking is mentioned for this back area. So it's, because I've been at soccer. Everyone's been at soccer games with their kids. You're getting there late. You got to park wherever you can, and you're just going to park. And unless there's a fence or a gate or something to prevent that, it's going to be parking along Stroud Ave.
Besides, Chuck, if I could jump in, I don't know how big a lot or an area they're thinking about back there where the water treatment plant used to be, but how many cars are going to get in there? One of the things we talked about last time was getting the cars off of Grove Street because they were kind of moving over more towards the trees or what have you. But on a decent walking day, dog walking day, there's got to be 20 cars there. I don't know if they're planning on having enough space in the end of Stroud Ave to handle 20 cars.
So it's 55 feet across, and anybody get rid of that?
And
it looks like it's 60-foot long. Parking spots are 10 by 20. So 6 on both sides. There's 12. Let's say there's 15. You need 20 feet to back out. So 12 to 15 right there.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. I don't know if that's parking or if that can be parking. been
So
out there a
that's the
couple of times.
road. It's only a car width, but I was just thinking to myself, so if you know there's parking down there, you're going to drive down there, you're going to drive down there, you're going to find out it's full, and then you're going to be like, oh my God, how do I turn around? That, I mean, that could be a place where they could turn around, or could that be expanded from some parallel parking? I don't know. It's some sort of, it's just a road, and then it
Yeah.
has, you know, in between the water features.
Yeah, I mean, I think both options have possibilities. I mean, I don't think with this one's free.
The
This
other
one over.
question, since you pulled this level GIS system up, you know, there's some folks in town interested in looking at potential composting sites. I think we've talked about this, and one site that's come up is this site, this piece of land across from the composting center, and I didn't know if you could comment on, you know, how much dry space is really in there. I think DPW uses it as overflow composting, so I don't even know if it's available, but I know I've had some questions about it.
Here's the composting area right here.
Yeah.
Although Karen's right, on the other side of the road, the left-hand side there are lots of mounds of dirt that's already cooked that they bring over as they need it.
It's like see that one that says 4.99 acres? I think that's supposed to be a 5. It comes up as a 5-acre parcel owned by the town.
And what are they suggesting doing with that property?
They're looking in general, and maybe you guys have some ideas. They're looking in general for 2 acres of space to do some local black earth, to have a black earth composting satellite site. But in Black Earth has said we need about 2 acres to make it happen. They have trucks. They would make basically they'd do what DPW is doing. They're going to make piles. They're going to get the trucks in there. They're going to move it around. There's videos online. You can see them doing it. So that's what they need. And then kind of in a place where it makes sense for some traffic to go in and out of there. They will be picking up from residents and dropping off. And so
yeah, this is and they want to be close to a highway. So
I guess they were open to this site. They're open to it. We're just kind of brainstorming at this point. I was like, oh, so Camp Curtis Guild, the land they offered us is too small to really build any municipal buildings we might need. That was only about an acre, right, Chuck? Acre of dry land?
Yeah, there's something out there that's not good for them. But there was about an acre.
Yeah, I thought it was too small anyway. Okay. Well, you know, when that whole thing came up with, you know, there was this impression that the whole entire Camp Curtis site was going to be available, in which case, okay, that's interesting, but yeah, unfortunately. So in general, that's what they're kind of looking for. And, you know, it may not be possible, but that was thank you for looking at that. That was one of the sites, and they were wondering, you know, how wet that site was or how much dry area there was.
At Camp Curtis or here?
Across from the composting center, that particular site that DPW is already kind of using. So I didn't know what they were using for, but maybe it's finished compost.
Yeah, so we were out there in 2011, and I'm not sure there was any operations going on out here in this area. So I guess it's a surprise to me, but if I
How can you remember like what happened in 2011?
Because when I first got here, Peter Heckenblecker wanted to create parking and access down this area. So the DPW created a parking map, and we walked down here, and the key was to come down here and then use this road to come back out.
Sure.
And it was determined that it was going and then back out. And then this area was all wet and all mounded, and there was a lot of wetlands, and it doesn't show up, but they're there. And you can see the vernal pools, and there's a lot of potential vernal pools. This is the discovery of the environmental impact in this area would be huge. I don't think that, I mean, it should be looked at a little bit better. Maybe that could happen again, but it's likely to be wet. And it's likely to be too close to wetlands, and it's likely to be vernal pools. So that was the original plan. I don't know why that died. And I also don't know why that this area here, that's the composting center, can't get looked at and reconfigured so it works.
Yep.
And I said that to the engineering department, and they're like, oh, you don't want to get in there. All the secrets.
Okay. Is that 9.46 acres really the entire composting area?
No, I don't know how they got it broken down. There's like this rock pile up in this area, and then there's this area up here. There's something else going on. I'll go to the aerial.
I was gonna say put on the picture. It's easier to. It's fairly easy to see this stuff from. You might need to take off the natural. There you go.
There you go, man. I'm right there with you. I'm.
As interesting as this is, it's almost 10:30.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate
do you want to close the meeting, and if a few people want to stay and keep looking at this map, they can, but people who need to sign off are able to do that?
Fair enough. Thank you very much. I appreciate all your time tonight.
Thank you, Karen, for waiting through the long meeting to the end to ask the questions.
Yeah. So that's what we have. These are leaves. These are composted leaves. And I guess over here.
Ah.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Those are your mounds you were talking about. Yep.
Yeah, over there. I have to turn this back on, and because you know that just appeared. That wasn't anything anyone asked about. Where are we at? Oh, right here. Vernal pool here.
Yeah. Well, and like you said earlier, I'd be very surprised if that 5 acre parcel that's marked as entirely dry is actually dry. Would be remarkable.
Yeah,
it doesn't look like it when you go down the road.
No,
you look to your left.
It doesn't. And there's been, countless observations by the trail committee and others that just say that it's wet. But so maybe who's going to the next DPW meeting? Maybe that would be an interesting thing to find out. Carl, are you available, or does anyone else want to go if Carl can't make it?
Sure. When is the next one?
So the person that goes has to say what's happening here with this compost.
Okay.
That's why I didn't want to make this my first DPW meeting.
Would it be the first Tuesday of October, which would be?
It would be
October 5th?
Yeah, that's what I remember. It was the 5th.
On the bright side, turning on topography, it looks like those things are definitely uphill from the wet space we were talking about. So,
well,
the nicest thing I can say for it.
Carl, is that a meeting you can go to? Otherwise, I would be willing to go again.
It's still virtual, right? Or a phone call?
Oh, do you want to get Brian in the rotation? I don't know. Brian went to one.
I'd be happy to. I just want to step on any feet of the.
He asked a bunch of questions.
I'm fine going, especially if you're.
I don't know how. I mean, 2 people can go too. I mean, they're always asked, is there anyone else? I assume means they're not restricting us to one other member.
I'd be happy to, especially where I walk back there occasionally. So I've seen it not just from space.
Carl, do you want to do this meeting and then have Brian do the next one? Get Brian in the rotation, or do you want to do it?
Sure.
It's up to you.
Is this on site or?
No, it's going to be the 5th. It's going to be a Zoom meeting at 1 o'clock.
Right. Mm-hmm. Sure.
So actually, Carl, if I might suggest, I could also be on it and just in a mostly silent partner role, just to see your action, if you will.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's decided. Well, I appreciate everybody staying this little bit of extra time to go over that, you know, probably the only land that town is totally in control of. So the DPW compost area reimagined. So Martha, it's up to you. As
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Favor.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
all right. Thank you.
Bye.
33.
Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.